Live. Let's.
We are live.
No,
awesome.
we're just. Oh, hang on. We got across.
Yes, we're live. It tells us we're live.
Awesome.
Welcome everybody to our talk tonight about starting your year on a high and building powerful habits that last. I think we can all relate to, the New Year's resolutions that last about a week, maybe a month sometimes when we stretch them out. So we've got some of our most common questions about how to beat that habit. And tonight I've got the Mojo Master, Michael Johnson, joining me.
Yo.
As you're jumping on, make sure you give us a like or a love. Say hi, tell us where you're tuning in from. Are you ready for the first question, Michael?
Go for it. I'll just check who we have online. Let me just have a look here. Just seeing, I'm just cranking up the Facebook page, just making sure we got people. We've got a few people starting to log on now, I believe. If you're there, just make sure you smash that like button. Let us know you're there. Jump in the comments. Just say hello. Don't ghost us. All right.
Hi, Catherine. Hi, Andrew. Hi, Jess.
There we go. I can start to see some people. There we go. Got Inda's online. Catherine's on there. JT. Awesome. All right, let's go. Brodie, what's the first question?
Okay, so what are the most common issues with New Year's resolutions?
The most common issues with New Year's resolutions is that they don't work. It's that simple. Look, after studying a lot of habit creation and what happens when we set New Year's resolutions, they're essentially a joke. And they're a joke because last time I checked, it was something like 85% of people who set a New Year's resolution or around that mark don't even make it till February. Now, when you look at it, most people don't really start New Year's resolutions anyway until now, because they're normally the first week or so, they're still half hungover. You know, if they're not still pissed, or they're still not overeating, or they're still buying stuff because it's on sale. So the majority of people really aren't committed to a New Year's resolution. They're committed to starting when they get back. Now, that's the most common pattern that they have anyway. The whole previous year is, I'm going to start Monday, I'm going to start next month, I'll start tomorrow. And it's the same excuse that they just rehearse over and over and over and over and over again. And so they think that New Year's is going to be something different, when in fact it's the same thing. What I talk about quite a lot, especially those of you, if you've done any of our events before, jump in and say hello. But I know there's a few of you who have done Thrive Time before. Something that I've started adding to Thrive Time is looking at the idea of time. Now, when we discuss the idea of time, the only time that's available is right now. The past is an idea. It's just an idea in our head. The future is, the past is a whole bunch of past perceptions that we store as memories. Now, they don't exist. They're just a perception of the past. Now, every one of us has a different perception. Then when we look at the future is just a whole bunch of imagined states. They're nothing. And so when someone says, I'm going to start tomorrow, if they can't create the habit right now, they're not going to create it tomorrow, because when they get to tomorrow, they're dragging the same thought process through to tomorrow. So the problem that the average person has, or most people have, is that they've got goals and they've got dreams, and they're all in the future, which doesn't exist. It's just an imagined state and an idea that they have, that they've created, thinking that life's going to change when they get it or get there. But the only thing that's stopping them from starting that journey is making the fucking decision in the first place. But they're not making the decision because they're waiting until New Year's, or they're waiting until next week, or they're waiting until next month. So it's the same pattern. They're just indecisive. They're not making a decision. And I spoke about this on our team training this morning, is the difference between choices and decisions are completely different. A choice is when you walk, and I'll use the analogy of walking into a restaurant. You walk into a restaurant, you get given a menu. That's choice. So you get to choose what you want to eat. But nothing happens until you make a decision. And the word decision means to cut away from. It means, it's part of the word dissect, or decetere, I think it is. And it means to cut away from. So you're cutting away from the choices. Now, once you make a decision, that decision takes a few things. Normally it takes courage. Normally when we're making a decision, especially to change or transform something or change a habit, the first thing is courage. Now, most people lack courage because they won't do things when they're afraid. They won't do things where they feel unsafe. And so they keep doing things that they always do because it's comfortable. So first of all, you've got the average person can't make a decision because they lack courage. And then the second thing that it takes to make a decision is you have to commit to something. And most people won't commit to change. They dabble. And that's the reason why the average person feels like they never get anywhere. They self-depreciate. They beat the shit out of themselves. They tell themselves they're not good enough. It reinforces their lack of confidence. It reinforces their lack of courage. It reinforces their lack of commitment. And so for the average person, or the majority of people in our society, is that they spend the majority of their time in their head, beating the shit out of themselves, telling them all the things that they haven't done, haven't achieved, why they've missed out on things. And so they live in this life of regret and guilt, okay, which then creates frustration and stress. Then the average person goes and they use things like alcohol, or they'll spend, a whole 8 hours a day on social media just doing this, because they're just trying to escape. They're trying to escape that stress and the pressure and the pain of not having achieved. But essentially that comes back from the lack of commitment and the lack of courage. If people learn how to commit and make decisions, and what I'll say is when you go to create change, it's never the right time. Change never happens in the right time, because the only time is now. And if you're not going to make a decision now, tomorrow won't be better, or the next month. And I watch this every week. When I have more money, then I'll change. Well, the reason why you don't have any money is because you're not committing to change. You're doing the same shit you've always done. When someone says, "I'll wait until tomorrow or next week or next month," they're lacking the courage to make the decision now, so that they're going to be in the same place next month. When it comes to next month, they'll go, "Oh, maybe the month after, or maybe next week, or maybe tomorrow." And so they always keep putting it off, but that reinforces that pattern that they have of self-destructive mental thoughts and processes, which lowers their self-worth, lowers their self-belief, lowers their self-respect, lowers their self-confidence. And over time, you just get so many indecisive people who live in choice. Oh, I could do this, or I could do that, and I could do this, and I could do that. And then when they do make a commitment, it's normally reactive. So instead of thinking, if I make this decision now, life has a high probability of being better in the next year, or the next 2 years, or the next 10 years. What they'll do is they'll see that sales are on. And we see this with our events, Bronnie, you've seen this, where people want to change their life and they go, "Oh, it's too expensive," but they go out and they buy a new $30,000 or $40,000 car. That's a liability. In 10 years' time, that thing's a piece of shit. It's going to depreciate. You've lost money. Now you need to work harder to get that money. And not only have you just paid for the car, you've also paid for the registration, the insurance, the fuel, and all the rest of the stuff. Now, I'm not saying don't buy cars, but especially I'm not the right person to say that because I love my cars, but it's just that the choice that they're making is a reactive decision in the moment based on their emotional state, trying to escape their self-depreciating thoughts. And so most people overspend and only commit to things that make their life worse in the long run. But it's short-term, immediately gratifying because they get to see it, they get to touch it, they get to feel it. When the new car's parked in the driveway, or they've just bought, a $3,000 or $4,000 Louis Vuitton handbag that's a month's worth of income that, they've worked a month to buy that handbag essentially, and they've chucked it on their credit card, they're paying that off over the next year. But they've done it, and in the moment they go, "Oh, look, I feel good." Then afterwards they go, after 2 weeks or a month, they go, "Oh shit, I should have spent money on that." And now they're trapped again, self-depreciating, lower their self-worth, lower their self-respect. I can't figure out why I can't get ahead. And this is just the same cycle that most people go through. It's predictable. And when you've worked with tens of thousands of people over the years, what you'll realize is that most people, if you talk to them for 1 or 2 sentences, you can almost tell how they act and how they respond and how they behave. Very few people that I ever come across have the actual courage to do the things that they need to do in order to create the life that they want. But most people say, "I want to achieve great things. I want to do better in life. I want to perform better. I want greater self-worth. I want greater self-confidence. And I wish I was doing all these things." But at the same time, they're all pipe dreams in the future that they're never going to get to just because of those things. Okay. And it's very, very common. I mean, I try to teach how not to do that, but the majority of people avoid doing work on themselves because it's easy to go out and buy a handbag for $4,000 and go, "Look how great my life is," than actually doing the work, which is challenging, and then going, "Look how fucking great my life is." Okay, but that's just most people. Most people are pretty predictable. The average Australian spends, last time I checked, they almost spend double their income. Okay, which means the average person lives on credit and loans. And they do that because they're showing others, "Look, I'm getting ahead. I'm actually doing okay." When in fact, they don't realize it, but they're digging a massive hole. Okay, but that's just how most people operate. Okay, I try and teach something different. I think that that's crazy. I think that it's ridiculous. And I think for a couple of years of challenging yourself and pushing yourself, in 2 to 3 years, if you do the work that we teach, you'll be flying. You'll be in the top probably 5% of the population, and maybe in 5 to 8 years, you'll be in the top 1% of the population. Okay, and I showed that in my own life. Committed for 10 years and then became a 1%er of, especially financially. Okay, it's just but that's what it took. And the majority of my friends, they just kept doing the same patterns, and they thought that I was an idiot because I was spending all my money on learning and all that stuff. But what was happening, I was growing in here, because when I change in here, eventually it changes out here. But what most people think is all of this is bullshit. I'll just keep changing out here, and eventually one day everything will change, and it never does, because they don't change, and they're the problem. But yeah, so that's the reason why New Year's resolutions don't work. They very rarely change someone. The average person's going to give up. They're going to just keep self-depreciating. It's just going to be another reason why they failed.
Yeah, absolutely. And everything you just said is like a reflection of my life before I started working on my mindset 3 years ago. That all of those patterns were me. And comment below if you can actually relate to one or a little bit of anything that Michael just covered, because it is so common, yet we think that we're alone. So thank you for that answer.
That's all right. I would say to anyone who is really serious and like understands what I'm talking about, or they feel like they've been going through this, especially if you really listen to what I say and you understand what I teach, if you just commit the next 3 years to your personal growth, and sometimes you need to take a hit. And what I mean by a hit is that in life, when you make change, sometimes things get worse before they get better. And it's not that they get worse. It's just that, let's just talk about, I'll use the analogy of a house. If you live in a house that's essentially okay and it's a roof over your head, but it's really a piece of shit, right? It keeps falling down. Everything keeps breaking, you fix the fucking gutters, and then, the next second it needs new tiles. And all you do your whole life in your spare time just is like fixing this fucking house that is a never ending, it's got never ending work on it. But you patch something and then something else falls down. You patch it and you keep patching everything. Now that's okay if that's how you want to live, but it's super challenging because you're always patching it. That's how most people live. That's most people's life. It's their mindsets, their psychology. It's the way that they operate. Now, if you're smart and you spend a little bit of time, you plan, you start designing what you want, which is essentially our Thrive Time event. So you start planning and you put together the plan and you get really, really clear with what you're creating. Then what you do is you grab a bulldozer and you bowl the whole freaking thing down. And then you start laying the solid foundations. Now, at first, people drive past and they go, there was a house there before, and now look at it. It's a bunch of rubble and there's all this shit everywhere. That's what they see. But they don't see what's being created. They just see the rubble. After it gets cleared out, they go, oh, there's a vacant block. Before there was a house, but now there's nothing. And so it seems to the external world that nothing's happening. And then a couple of months later, you drive past, or 6 months later, like I don't know about anyone else here, but once the foundations get laid, normally a house goes up pretty quick. Okay, the hardest part is all the pre-work, the preparation, the demolition. That's the thing that takes all the time in normally a house build. So once it goes up, people drive past, and once the tree's starting to get established and everything gets established, people drive past and they go, wow, look at that. Look how beautiful that house is. But what they don't realize is in order to get there, you had to demolish everything. It turned into rubble. Then you had to lay the foundations, and it looked like nothing was happening, but all the work had already really been done. The last part was the easiest part, which is just building it and putting it all up. Okay, all the hard stuff comes prior to that. The decisions, the architecture, all of that, it's creating that map. But most people don't want to do that because they go, well, I've got something now. I don't want to demolish anything. And so they're holding on to what they've got instead of realizing that you've sort of had to destroy things in order to create something better. And throughout our life, we're always destroying things and we're always creating something new. In fact, in order to build a new habit, you have to destroy an old habit to create a new habit. Now, the habit that you created last year is something that you're going to have to destroy this year if you want to grow again. So our whole life is destroying and creating habits. And the habit that is a new habit that we once created eventually becomes an old habit that we need to destroy. And that's how we grow and evolve as people. Most people don't want to do that because they go, well, I don't want to destroy anything. I just want to hold on to everything, but I want a better life. And because of that, they just get stuck. Okay, and that's how most people live. So I would say for anyone who is doing our work, who's done our events like Thrive Time or has gone deeper with our work, I would really recommend just thinking of like a 2 to 3 year internship, and it's an internship to build a greater life. And within 2 to 3 years, you'll probably put yourself, if you implement what I teach, you'll put yourself in the top 1% category in almost every area of life, from health to mindset, to wealth creation, to relationships, to understanding people, to leadership, all of that stuff, okay? Because the majority of life is human behavior. And the majority of the problems in our life come from the way we think.
Yeah, 1000%. Okay, so our next question, we've got a lot of comments as well, which is really cool. So the next question is, why don't most people achieve what they want?
Pretty much exactly the reasons why I just went over. It's normally, there's a lot of patterns, but the first, I would say, let me just go over a whole bunch of things one by one and let me know if it resonates. I can see here, there's Chantel on here. I haven't seen you for ages. Hope you're doing well, Chantel. We've got Catherine on here, Lynn, Sophie. I can see there's a heap of people in here. So jump in there, say a comment, say hello. I'm trying to read the comments as I'm going through. But look, I'll go over a heap of things that most people mistake. The first thing is nothing changes unless you change. It's that simple. Now, a lot of people don't want to hear that because they don't want to take responsibility. We really live in a world where we can get away with blaming things. I can blame the reason why I'm unsuccessful on my parents. Now it's them. They screwed up my life and that's just the way that it is. And now I can blame them. That doesn't make my life any better. It just means that now I have a reason. So I don't think that that's a good thing. Now, you know, there might be a whole bunch of other people. I can see Sean as well. How are you, buddy? Yeah, it doesn't, I don't think it quenches the thirst of wanting to be better. Humans are, all animals that I've seen from studying different fields of biology and so on, it seems like all animals have this intrinsic desire to grow and evolve. And in nature, things that don't evolve and don't consistently grow and change and become adaptable end up going extinct. That seems to be a fairly common pattern. Now, I believe that humans have that same pattern, that there's an innate desire within humans to want to grow. But the problem with the majority of humans, especially in the westernized world, is that we don't have enough pain to want to grow. If you live in India and you can't afford to eat and you're living on the street and you're essentially eating out of bins, you're forced to grow, because if you don't learn how to adapt and navigate that environment, you're essentially going to die. So you have a massive motivator to want to grow. When I was in South Africa, in Johannesburg, there's a lot of poverty over there. And you will see people doing whatever they can do to survive, whatever they can do, whether that be armed robbery, whether it be murder, whether it be just robbing people on the street, whether it be begging. It's very, very common because they're driven to do whatever it takes to survive. Now, in Australia, most Australians live in survival mode, but don't need to really survive, because you don't have to work and the government pay you enough money to be in the top around about 5 to 10% of income earners globally. So you don't even have to work. You can sit on your ass every day and smoke weed and eat pizza and chill out in front of the TV and drink beer for breakfast. And the government still pay you money to live a more comfortable life than the majority of the world. Okay, so that's the truth. And so because of that, you can work and you work your 9 to 5 job and you make great money on a global standard. Okay, but at the same time, you compare yourself to your friends and they seem to have a better life. And so now you feel like shit because you've got 2 cars and 2 kids and your kids go to school and you've got food on the table every night, but now you're in an over mortgaged house and you know you're buying clothes that you can't afford on credit. And so now you're stressed and you're living in survival mode every day and you're going, how the hell am I going to get ahead? But when you think about earning money, a lot of people think about what they're going to spend it on, which means they're never going to get ahead. It's a consistent psychological pattern. It's not that they don't have enough money. It's just that they have a shit pattern of thinking about money, which is stopping them from getting ahead. They think, if I earn more money, I will get ahead. And the truth is, if they earn more money, they just spend more money. So they never, ever get out of that cycle. And I've worked with doctors who make, $200,000 to $300,000 a year. In fact, some surgeons who make almost $1 million a year, if not $1 million. And when COVID hit, they couldn't afford to take 14 days off. If they got sick with COVID, they could not take 14 days off of work because they could not afford to pay all their debt off. Okay, now that's crazy, and they had no savings. So it doesn't change anything. There's an amazing documentary that I watched only a week ago, and I think it's on Amazon Prime if you've got it. But it looks at cross lotto winners and what they've done with their money. And it's really, really fascinating. There was one couple who won $60 million. They invested it, and now they just live off the dividends. So they just live a great lifestyle. They haven't gone too far over. They still live in, country America or Central America, and they still have their friends around, but they've got a big house and throw a pool party and stuff like that. But they figured out if they invest it, they're sweet. But there were other people who got the money and all they did was they just spent all the money and they just kept thinking, I just won $4 million. There was a guy who spent, I think, $4 million in 2.5 years and ended up broke. And now he's complaining and going out there and trying to teach people how not to blow their cash like he did. That is very, very common with cross lotto winners, because unless you change your psychology, you don't change your patterns of behavior. And if you can't save a small amount of money, you'll never save a big amount of money. If you can't invest a small amount, you won't invest a large amount. It's exactly what I teach at Thrive Time. And I teach all this stuff for a very good reason, because I want people to be successful. I want to know that if someone commits to one of our courses, and I'm answering the question as well, Bron, if someone commits to one of our courses, they're not only committing money, they're committing time. I want to give people their time back and their money back because it's an investment. But investments, most people, when they do something, they go, hang on, I'm used to going to the shop, and if I want to buy a new pair of shoes, I can lay down $200 and immediately I get something. But investments don't work like that. Investments are, I lay down money now and over time it starts coming back and it comes back more and more because it compounds. But most people don't think like that because they're looking for immediate gratification. And so that's why most people struggle. They struggle with their mindset. They struggle with their wealth. They struggle with their health because, again, they want to know that if they're going to go on a diet, they want to see maximum results in minimum time, which very rarely works. That's why when I used to work in gyms, we used to run 12-week body transformation challenges. Then some bastard came out and he thought, you know what, I can do a 10-week challenge. And people went, why do 12 weeks when I can do 10? Then someone else came along and said, well, we can do an 8-week challenge. And people went, screw 10 weeks, we can do 8 weeks. And then after a while, it's like, let's do a 3-minute challenge. Okay, but it's because people want minimum outlay, minimum challenge, maximum reward. And life, universe, Mother Nature, God, whatever you want to call, however things operate. I don't have an answer for that, but there are consistent patterns that work in the universe, which I study a lot of that stuff. And there are consistent patterns that work with human behavior, and there are things that don't work with human behavior. Immediate gratification and expecting fast results from minimum outlay very rarely work. Very rarely do great results come from minimal challenge. Okay, very rarely, actually never, can you ever break the law of supply and demand. It's a universal law. If you don't demand more of yourself and push yourself to grow and expand, you won't grow. And they're common things that I teach, but that's the reason why so many people get stuck. So I don't know what the exact question was again, Bron, but that's one of those lessons as well. What was the question?
Why don't most people achieve what they want?
Yeah, well, for those exact reasons. And when I talk about the law of supply and demand, I tell people, do more, not less. But most people go, I don't want to do that. I want to do less. Well, you can do less, but you're just not going to get more results. You can become more efficient and more productive. But there was a young guy I was talking to last week. He was this 16-year-old kid. And he said, Michael, I really want to make a lot of money, but I don't really want to work more than 4 or 5 hours a week if I can. And I said, well, that's cool. What do you want to do? And he said, I want to own a business. And I said, okay, let's think about it this way. You have the same amount of intelligence as I do. Let's just say we're both even in our intelligence. You want to work 6 hours and I want to work 100 hours. Who's gonna have all the clients? And he went, oh shit. And I said, see, it doesn't work. So that whole idea of working less to get ahead more doesn't work, because I can put in more software and more technology and work less, but then my competitor will put in more technology and more software and then outbeat me by working. So the question then really becomes, how do we do what we love so that we enjoy working hard and we enjoy the process of being better as an individual, and still we enjoy life and we work hard towards something that allows us to grow and expand as a person. So for me, I get people who tell me I work too hard. I think they don't work enough. And they're trying to get away from working because they hate what they do. I want to work more. If I could not sleep, I would not sleep because I love this. Okay, if I could take all of that knowledge behind me and put it inside my brain without having to sit there and study and stress about it and go, I don't know what the hell I'm learning, and this is complicated and it's stressful and I don't understand any of this stuff. and go through that pressure and that challenge, which expands my mind and pushes me to learn. If I could just put that in there, I would do it. But the truth is I can't. I'm exactly like everybody else. I read things, I forget things, so I've got to go back and relearn them. Half of the shit that I learn, I don't understand. So I've got to force myself to grow, and it creates pressure, it creates tension, and it creates stress. Those three things are where optimum growth happens. Okay, and if we look at other fields of science like geology, when you have pressure in nature, it creates change. Now, most people want less pressure in life. They don't want more. I want more pressure. I want to know how I can take on more pressure without feeling crushed. I don't want less pressure. I want more pressure. But at the same time, I don't want too much pressure, which crushes me. Okay, so it's a very fine line, and very rarely do I get it right. Sometimes I take on too much and sometimes I don't take on enough. But my mindset is always gauging that. Some days I go, shit, I've done too much. And other days I go, you know what, I feel like I haven't done enough today. And my brain's just trying to find that equilibrium. Okay, and I'm just navigating that every day, just like every other human. It says some people work really hard, get super crushed because they overcommit to things, and then they just avoid everything, and they have this massive avoidance mechanism for pressure, which then they stuff everything up. So you watch people, and Bron, you've seen this where I work with people in business, where they grow this huge business, and it's pressure, and it's so much. It's like this pressure cooker. And then eventually they start getting ahead and they go, right, time to release the pressure valve. I'm going on a 6-month holiday. You know what? Everything's going to run well. And they come back and the whole business is crushed. And then they start again. Okay. And that's just because they have those stupid cycles. They're massively volatile instead of just navigating through the small emotional waves that are going on a daily basis and micro adjusting. They're massively adjusting. Okay? And I talk about this as driving down a highway. When you drive down a highway and you're doing 110 kilometers an hour, you're always just micro adjusting. And that's how our emotion should be throughout the day. When we feel like we're going one way too much and we overcorrect, you can do that at slow speeds, but when you do it at fast speeds, you'll flip the car. Now, most people are trying to go flat out in life and they want to go fast and they want to go hard and they want to achieve things. But at the same time, they're overcorrecting, which then makes them flip out and destroy everything. Okay? And that's why people do it. So there's some of the key things that stop people from achieving. Okay, the law of supply and demand. They think that positive thinking and being happy is the key to life, which is bullshit. You know, in nature, things grow or things die, things expand or things contract. And we can create growth when we're under pressure. We can create growth when we're not being pressured as much. But at the same time, if we go too long without pressure, we just stop growing. Okay. Yeah. So in life, the most fulfilling part of life is challenging ourselves to do things that we're not sure whether we can do them, committing to them, pushing ourselves to achieve them under stress and pressure, and then at the end, achieving something and going, fuck yeah, I did it. That's called self-worth, self-belief, self-love, self-respect, self-confidence. They're some of the greatest gifts that a human can give themselves. Now, that only comes from challenge and pressure, the things that most people are trying to avoid. Okay, I want an easy life. Well, there goes your self-worth, your self-love, your self-respect. Okay, because you'll sit inside your head and self-depreciate and tell yourself all the things that you're not doing in life. Okay, there's nothing better. And I know anyone who is part of my community probably understands this and will probably understand this. I love a super productive day, and today's been one of those days. I know at the end of today, I will climb into bed and the pressure valve will go, and I'll go, oh, that was awesome. Because I know today has just been go, 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 go from the morning, and it's been super productive and I've achieved a lot today, but I have not stopped. I've half eaten my dinner because I just didn't have time. And I think I ate lunch at like 3:30 this afternoon. Not that that's a good pattern, right? I wouldn't do that too long, but that's been my day. I know today when I go to bed, I'll have a smile on my face and my brain will be quiet. On the days where I sit around and go, I don't know what to do. I wish I had an easy life. I've got so much on. I move papers around and I overstress myself from all these, fake look how hard I'm working moments. Okay, I've got so much shit on, and then you confuse yourself and you stress yourself out in your own head. And then I go, I just wish everything was easy. And I go and watch an hour of TV, and I go and have 3-hour toilet breaks and 45 coffees throughout the day, and 8 phone conversations, and I spend 3 hours on Facebook chatting to someone about nothing really. And then I over-exaggerate my problems and over-dramatize things in my conversations about how hard my fucking life is. And then at the end of the day, you sit in bed and your brain goes, you piece of shit, look at all the things that you didn't do. the fuck is wrong with you? And then you start going, what's wrong with my life? Why aren't I getting ahead? Why aren't I where I want to be? And your brain just goes crazy. It's mental. So anytime we avoid external chaos, so when we want an easy life externally, we create chaos internally, and our brain creates pressure and stress. When you wake up in the morning and you prioritize your day and you prioritize your week and you commit to things before you're ready, and you push yourself to find a way and you become creative and you start to learn how to use your mind better, you'll push yourself to achieve, and you start to learn how to do that over time. And this is exactly what our events are teed up to do. Okay, again, but it's a bit of a journey. Now, when you do that, after a while, you start going to bed at nighttime, your brain goes, ah. But all out here is just like, look how much shit I've actually got going on. You're juggling heaps of stuff, but it's awesome because you feel like you're moving forward in life. So it depends how you want to live. Easy life, crazy mind. Crazy life, calm mind. Providing you're in control of your commitments. Okay, if you overcommit to things that you don't know what to do with, and you're overcommitting to shit because you're unsure, which is most people, then you end up with both a crazy mind and a crazy life. Okay, and that's why I created Thrive Time, for that exact reason. Because the more you learn how to map out your life correctly, and the clearer you get with what you should be committing to, that creates focus and clarity. And the majority of things in an average week, I say no to. But when I say yes to something, I know I'm committed to making it happen. Okay, and I don't always get it right, but I'm committed to it.
Yeah, and just to be devil's advocate for a little minute here, when I first came across you 3 years ago, and you said I could one day do what I love every single day, I thought, oh, what's this guy on? Like, he's got to be full of himself. But, you know, and I also had done a lot of personal development. So I'm like, why is this different? Why am I going to implement what he's teaching? And just from personal experience, it was because you actually got to the core of what lit me up, what inspired me, what I loved. I got to learn me, who I was at my core. I'd achieved so much, but I wasn't fulfilled, and I had no idea how to find that. And that's what I found at your events. And I get the same feedback, Bronwyn, you work way too hard, but you know what? To me, it's not work. I love what I do. I love what we do. I think it's fantastic. And like, look at the smile on my face. To wake up and say that you do that every day, it's a no-brainer. Like, you've got to commit, right?
100%. It's just, I know this because I was that dumb shit who was put in special classes and told I wouldn't get anywhere in life, and, you know, became a diesel mechanic, not knowing what I wanted to do in life. And I was just, I didn't know what I wanted to do. But when I found the thing that I committed to, I found I kept going through ruts as well. Like, I'd get all motivated, I'd commit to these big goals, and then all of a sudden I'm back in a rut again, beating the shit out of myself, not knowing what I want to do in life and doubting myself. But after a while, I realized that that's also part of a growth cycle that you'll grow out of over time. And it just takes time. But the first thing that you need to do is you have to create maximum clarity around your mission, your values, your purpose, and you've got to have some sort of a mental and emotional balancing tool, because it's so easy for our mindset and our emotions to pull us off track with what we really want to achieve. And most people let fears define them. They let worry define them. I would say that the average person is more afraid of what other people think than what they think of themselves. And so they become self-destructive in their own mind. I mean, the average person wouldn't let someone else call them a piece of shit every 3 minutes, but most people let themselves call themselves a piece of shit every 3 minutes. So, you know, you've got to learn how to balance all that stuff out. Or if not, you pull yourself off track. You start making decisions based on fear. When you make decisions based on fear, then you start living in greed, where you go, shit, if I just make all this money, then life will be easier. If I just had the perfect body, that's greed. It's gluttony. Now, that doesn't help growth. Growth is really a process, okay? And it's something that I've just come to love. I realize that every day, there's no such thing as perfection every day. It's just, there's a process. If you wake up in the morning and you go through a process of getting better and learning about yourself throughout the day, life's easy. If you wake up in the morning and you commit to all these things, go, I got to get all this stuff done. At the end of the day, you go, shit, I didn't get half of the stuff done. I'm a piece of shit. And you beat yourself up, you self-depreciate. And that's based on self-comparisons. So just a little giveaway for anyone who's listening in here. The reason why our work is so different is I don't preach positive thinking. I think it's false. I have never, ever worked with a person who is positive all the time. In fact, positive thinking people are normally semi-delusional, where they convince themselves that they're positive, but justify all the reasons why they're negative. Now, we both go in and out of those cycles. So I don't like positive thinking. It's not, if you really think about your own mindset and your own psychology, you might be positive on the outside, but you probably have a lot of self-doubt, a lot of self-criticism, a lot of self-judgment on the inside. So that doesn't really make you positive. It's the balance is the way of life. If you get there, but you will shift and merge in and out of positive and negative thoughts throughout the day, if you want to call them that. Some are empowering, some are disempowering. But the more you learn to navigate that, the more you stay on track. And as I mentioned, you just don't overcorrect. If you overcorrect, things go crazy. And that's how most people live. I feel like shit, so I'm going to go out and buy something to make myself feel good. And then afterwards they go, oh shit, I overspent, now I feel guilty. And so it's just this big cycle of, I feel really good, now I feel really bad, now I feel really good, now I feel really bad. And that's the average person. Okay, my job's shit, my boss is an asshole, but now I'm at the pub and I'm gambling and now life's going to be better because I'm going to win all this money and I'm drinking. Aha, life's great. But it's not, because they'll wake up tomorrow with a hangover and no money again. And now they're back at work. So this is the volatile cycles that most people go through. And I don't think it's a great way to live. And there's a way out of it. It's just you just have to have the courage to commit to learning and consistent, never-ending growth. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Heather's just put a comment in saying, sitting here at home nodding. And I'm sitting here listening, nodding as well, because as much as we think that we're alone, it actually relates to all of us because it's human behavior, right? So yeah, that's really cool. I love that. Okay, so with all of the, awareness around the human behavior and the patterns and stuff that we play out, what are some of the keys to achieving more in 2021 that you would share with everyone?
Okay, first of all, depending on where you're at. So for the people who have done my Thrive Time event before, please go back and grab your Thrive Time manual, because that is your map for life. That map for life is cool. That map for life is very important. I still use pretty much every tool from Thrive Time that I teach almost daily, whether it's balancing out my mental imbalances, okay, which is self-doubt and worry. So anything that drives any emotional process. So anytime I feel an emotion, there's a thought process attached to it. When you balance out those thought processes, which is what I teach at Thrive Time, you've all got those tools if you've done Thrive Time, and I know there's a lot of you on there. Make sure you're using those things. Go back, revisit your mission, get really clear on that. Tweak what I teach to get really, really clear on your purpose. Go back through, have a look at your values again, really define them, get super clear on them. And then from there, set goals. Because goals without a mission, purpose, and values are unfulfilling. And I see this happening when I go and work in the corporate industry with people who make millions of dollars. And they go, Michael, I'm miserable. I want to commit suicide, but I make all this money. My life looks amazing, but I hate my life. That's because they're driven by goals. They're not driven by something meaningful. You need to do meaningful things in life and that push you to grow, and your goals help you to grow. But if you grow without meaning, it feels like shit. There's nothing worse than going, woo, I achieved, what's next? Okay, and that's how most people live. They get a goal, they achieve something, they reward themselves, they buy themselves something, and then they go, what's next? And it's just this never-ending grind in life with these little moments of celebration. Life is a celebration. You wake up in the morning, get out of bed, and you go, I get to do this again today. And you get to have another crack at it. How awesome is that? Do you know it took me 10 years to learn that? 10 years. From studying human behavior and becoming, I would say, based on my knowledge now, one of the experts in this field in this country, if not globally as well. It took me still 10 years to learn that it's, you wake up every day and you get to do something you love. And that is learn about yourself. What is greater than learning about you? It's awesome. And you get feedback instantly. When I feel like shit, I go in there and I assess it and I try to figure out why. What's going on? What's the feedback? What's the learning? What's the lesson? Life is exactly like school, where you sit grade 1 and grade 1's hard, but then you get this exam, you go, oh no, it's a test. And you're all stressed out and you're peaking out. And then if you pass the test, you go into grade 2. Now grade 2 seems okay. Everything's going well. It's stressful at first, but you start figuring out and you get into flow and life school again. And the teacher goes, right, we're getting towards the end of the year. There's an exam. You go, oh no, not a test again. And every year, we learn a whole bunch of lessons and we get a test. Now life, we get a whole bunch of lessons and we get a test. If we pass the test, we go to a greater level. But that next level is just as stressful. And it feels like we never get ahead because we go, I'm always being tested. But when you stop and you look back, the things that used to challenge you, you don't even think of anymore. You just go, oh, what is what it is. I remember back when I couldn't even pay like a $30 phone bill. When I first started our business, we were eating, Jess and myself were eating baked beans and eggs every week. In the first year in business, we did $30,000. And we were struggling. We were supporting 2 wages, rent, could hardly even afford food. And those things that used to challenge me, I look back now and I go, $30 phone bill. I wouldn't even notice if it came out my bank account at $30. But now when I look at it, I'm going, shit, how do I pay all of our staff wages? Whew. But it's the same feeling. It's the same feeling. So the feeling never goes away. It's just the learning and the lesson gets bigger. The same as at school. The exam always feels hard. But if you pass it, you go to the next grade. And in life, we learn lessons and then we get a test. Okay? We solve one problem, we create a brand new, bigger problem. And that's how we know we're growing. That's called evolution. And most people don't look at evolution and their growth. They look at, I still feel the same. I still feel like I haven't achieved anything. I still feel like I'm stressed about money. I still feel like my health isn't the same. After working with thousands of professional athletes, from bodybuilders to, cricketers to AFL footballers to, you name it, professional rugby players and so on, none of them ever feel like they're fit enough or where they want to be. And the reason is because when they work on one area, it starts taking energy away from another area, and eventually that area grows, and then this area stays a bit stagnant, and then they've got to take some energy from here and they put it into there and they grow. But it's a consistent evolution of pushing things up higher. And I think that most people just don't appreciate that that's the journey of life. That's what we're here for. And so when you stop loving the goal and you start loving your own growth, that's where life changes. When you love the process of every day getting a little bit better and learning through your failures, learning through your mistakes, learning lessons and going, hey, I would have stuffed that up in the past, but now I learned something. I'm not going to make that same mistake. And when the test comes up, you go, I already know this one. I'm not going to do that stupid thing I did last time. And then you look back and you go, I made the right decision today. And you're proud of yourself for those things. But when you look at all the things you haven't achieved, you always feel like shit. And that's how most people live. So, yeah.
Yeah. When I see the test come up, I look at it and I just go, I see you not sneaking in here. I'm passing this test. Stuff you, not going backwards.
We had one yesterday, right? We had two amazing people that we had interviews for our marketing department, for our marketing team. And I went and I spoke and I said, look, can we hire both? Because they're both fantastic. And I went, I don't know, money. And then I spoke to Caitlin, my assistant. I said, Caitlin, what would you do? And she said, I would hire both, but what about the money? And I went, Then Jess, my wife, comes out and she goes, they both sound like you need them. Why don't you hire both? And I said, because of the money. Now, I still had the same thing that everyone else goes through, right? Exactly the same thing. Okay, it's just that this is costs a lot more money than, buying something small. This is a big decision. And anyway, Caitlin looks at me and she goes, what would you teach? And then I went, fuck it, let's just hire both of them. Because what I teach is that demand creates supply. Unless you're prepared to take on the pressure, you don't grow. Okay, so we just hired both because it's true. You can't grow without the pressure. You can't grow without the stress. You can't grow without the commitment first. And so we will make it work. I guarantee it. We've always made it work. Okay, because I've got the self-belief and I know our team has the self-belief to make it work. But it's just, again, at first that decision is the hard part because the doubt comes up, the fear comes up, the worry, all the what ifs. And everyone goes through this. Everyone. I've worked with billionaires before and they still have the same thing. It's just they're thinking, should I buy a $100 million block of land, which I could develop and turn into $400 million? But they're still shitting their pants. What if it goes wrong? Okay, it's $100 million. Now, most people go, oh, yeah, they're billionaires. But at the same time, they didn't get billionaires by making stupid decisions around money, just like everybody else, right? So it really comes down to, first of all, you need to know what you want, and then you need to commit to things, and you always commit to things before you're ready. Because if you were ready to do them, you'd already be there. And the truth is, you're not where you want to be if you're looking at growth. So you've got to make the decisions and you've got to commit first, but it's scary. And that's where courage comes in. I think the average person just lacks commitment and courage to pretty much most things that they do.
Yeah, absolutely. The old fuck before the fuck yeah, right?
Yeah, well, that's one of my quotes from one of my events. And I just said, you will not have a fuck yeah until you have an oh fuck moment. Yeah. Okay, so if you want more fuck yeah moments in the celebrations, you have to go through those oh fuck, I don't know what I'm doing, oh fuck, I'm not ready moments. Sorry for those who don't like swearing, but my dad's a tradie. He thinks I don't swear enough, and my mum tells me off for swearing too much, so I don't know what to do. Just thought I'd be myself.
Yeah, Yeah, I'm just as bad with the swearing. But anyway, okay, so another common pattern that we come up against is, why do most people wait until massive tragedy, massive suffering, huge loss to create change? Like, why does it take that?
Okay. So if we look at life is giving us feedback every second of every day. Okay. I'm not going to get into the neuroscience of this stuff too much, but our brain is interpreting reality through our sensory perception. Our eyes don't actually see anything. If you study the eyes, and I go into this in some of our more advanced events, if you study the eyes, they take in light. They're a light receptor. And what happens is, through our rods and cones of our eyes, they take in electromagnetic frequencies, which we perceive as color and shadow. So these frequencies come into our eyes, and our rods and cones pick them up, sends it into a part of our brain called the thalamus, and our thalamus filters that information about what we see through our value system. And this is why I teach values so much and get so in depth into them, because if you don't understand this really correctly, and most people have been taught values incorrectly. Okay, I've worked with plenty of people who have studied mental health, psychology, and so on, who don't understand the clarity of values, and I go and show them all the scientific evidence of this stuff. But your brain filters your whole reality through your value system. And it also studies, it also filters, but based on your emotional imbalances. So you've got your value systems, then you've also got emotional imbalances. And your emotional imbalances and your mental imbalances distort your values. So when you're unsure about what you want to do and you go, oh, if I fail, then I'm going to get judged. That idea of, I don't know what to do because I'm afraid, that distorts you just saying, this is what I want to do based on your values. So your whole reality gets filtered through your value systems in your brain. But what we see isn't even what we see. What we see is number one, what we expect to see, and also what we see based on our values. So our whole reality is an interpretation of what's really in front of us, and what we see is just light. Okay, it's scientific. This is scientific evidence, okay, or scientific backed. So our brain is a massive interpretation device around our senses. The sound is just compressions of air that our eardrums pick up. So we have compressions of air and frequencies of light that our brain pick up. That makes no sense, but our brain interprets it, the whole thing. And right now I see Bronwyn on the screen and I go, there's all these people around me, but what I'm actually seeing is electromagnetic frequency. Okay, and I'm not going to go any deeper than that because it'll just make you lose sleep over for a week thinking about this. Okay, in our advanced events, I go into this and show the science behind it. And great philosophers have spoken about this for thousands of years. So our brain has this interpretation device. We're picking up and trying to perceive our reality. And every day we're getting feedback about the way that we're living so that we can grow and evolve as a person. Now, if we're aware, we get subtle cues. So during the day, and it's almost like you get this little rub on your neck, and that little rub, you go, oh, I feel something. And you become aware of it. And you go, what does that mean? And you interpret it. Is it benefit? Is it a drawback? Is it empowering? Is it disempowering? And then you can slightly micro adjust in the way that you're operating as a person. But most people lack that awareness, and they lack that awareness because their whole life is driven through their emotions, which are a more primitive brain structure. It's the limbic system. It's an older, more primitive system. It's the monkey brain. So it's throughout our day, our emotions are distorting the way that we feel that little rub. Now, because we don't pay attention to it, eventually someone comes along, they go, hey, but you're too engrossed now in Facebook and scrolling through this, and you go, oh, I'm a bit stressed out, so you drink alcohol, which numbs you, and then you go and take a whole bunch of, these days there's so many medical drugs like painkillers and antidepressant, anti-anxiety medication that numb you, and you can just go and do your research on this. They're essentially a numbing device. And so these things numb you more. And then we watch television and we numb ourselves more. And so society gets quite numb. And essentially something comes on and goes, hey, wake up. And you go, I've had a really shitty week this week. I know what I need to do. I need to go spend some money and drink more alcohol. And then it gets worse. And then eventually life just comes along and you get smashed by a freight train. You go, fuck, I woke up one day and everything just fell apart. Like my whole life just disintegrated in front of my eyes. Now, from understanding human behavior at the level that I do, you realize that there was a whole bunch of signs that were leading to that for a long, long, long time. Okay, it's just that most people are unaware. The more you learn about human behavior and the more you learn about yourself, the more sensitive you become to those little feelings. Now, sometimes we pick them up. Like, I'm human as well. I don't pretend to have all my shit sorted, because if I did, there's no point living. It's that I'm on a journey too, just like everybody else. It's just I'm doing what I love, which is human behavior. But the reason why most people, their lives fall apart, or they destroy massive areas of their life in one single time, or they just have these massive painful experiences, is usually because of huge wake-up calls that they've numbed themselves to over such an extended period of time, that in order to wake up to life, the freight train has to happen. And I was living exactly like that up until 21 years of age, when, you know, at 15, I was going to commit suicide because I got expelled from school and I was always in trouble and always at home. Then I went back to school and life was okay. I was going to the gym, exercising. But at 21 years of age, I was a diesel mechanic, as an apprentice, not really sure what I wanted to do in life. Or maybe I was 20. And I got a phone call to go to the hospital because my best mate had been in a car accident. And he was the reason why I didn't kill myself at 15. He was the only reason why I didn't kill myself at 15. And when I got there, I was informed that his 3-year-old niece was killed in a car accident, who we used to look after. And it made me think and reflect about the way I was living. And I thought, you know what? One day life can just be taken away. And I asked myself, what's the purpose of my life? Why do I exist? Why am I here? And how am I going to be remembered when I'm not here? And what I realized is that I don't want to live the way I was living. Something had to change. And I knew that it was hard. I knew it would be scary. And I just committed to the change. But at the same time, there was a lot of negative feedback. Like when I quit as a diesel mechanic, my mum burst into tears and said, if you just do that for the next 10 years, you'll be set for life. You'll have a house, you'll get married, you'll have kids. And I said to mum, in 10 years, I'll be dead. I would have killed myself because I hate my life this way. Now, what she thought was that she thought that I was successful and I was achieving a lot. But at the same time, I was aware enough from that experience that I couldn't keep doing that. It wasn't what I wanted anymore. And I had to commit to something else. And so I walked away from that career. I did the same thing as a personal trainer. I was making $270,000 a year as a personal trainer. And one day I just realized it wasn't what I wanted to do anymore. I'd had that journey and I left. And I left to make $30,000 a year in my first year. And everyone said, you can always go back to personal training. You should do that. Like, why would you give that up? You're successful. You know, even my mum who said, you'll never make any money as a personal trainer. All of a sudden, she's telling everyone how successful I am after like 5 or 6 years of working my ass off to be that successful. And then when I quit that field to go and do this, no one goes to seminars, no one goes to events. You'll never make any money. Now I get featured in Entrepreneur magazine and work with Port Adelaide Football Club or, you know, Cricket SA, or, you know, these athletes or professional business people come, or she sees me in like magazines and stuff and she goes, it's my son. How good he's doing. Because she can't, for her, it's her fears, not me. Okay, I know what I want to do. It's just that she's pushing her fears onto me because she wants me to be okay. And all she can see is that I might not be okay. Okay, whereas I believe in myself and I'll make it work. So we've got to be really careful about that in life, because that leads to the freight train incident. Because we start worrying, well, if I do this, what if I fail? What will everyone else think? But here's the thing. If you fail and you fuck up and you lose everything, you start again and you rebuild. And now you've learned a whole bunch of things that you'll probably never make that same mistake again. But it's all part of a learning and lesson. Enjoy the process. Too many people become attached to this idea of like, I don't want to lose what I've achieved. But that's the reason why they're losing everything. Okay? Sometimes when people have worked to create everything, they get to a point in their life that when they lose it all, they go, it was the best thing that ever happened. Because I got so attached to this bullshit. Okay, so yeah.
Yeah, give us a like or a love if you can actually relate to that. I know I can, hands in the air. So, while you're just having a little bit of a drink, how do you build strong habits? How are they created?
Habit creation. Love talking about this, and I get asked a lot to talk about this. Habits we've got to be careful of. Just like most of the other things that I was talking about before. It's I hope I haven't disrupted anyone's thought patterns too much, but I think most people in society honestly are conned. We're conned into creating a shitty life because that's how most people live. And we today when I was talking about this with our team, I was just saying, like, when you grow up, you don't get given the book of life and you don't get given the rules of life. And so the only way we figure things out is we watch mum, we watch dad, we watch their friends, we watch the other kids around us. And then we watch what the teachers tell us. And after a while we go, oh shit, It seems like that's what we need to do in order to achieve in life. And so most people are only doing things that they think are going to work based on the way everyone else operates. But statistically, if 60% of the Australian population are obese or overweight, it means we don't want to follow that pattern, because most people in our society are not healthy. Now, if we look at the majority of our society, statistically, the majority of the average Australian spends almost double their income, okay, through debt. Now, that means that the average person will never, ever get ahead financially. So if we're watching and we're going, okay, this is what success looks like, and we follow those patterns, your chance of being successful or being fulfilled in life is pretty much zero. Okay, that's what it is. You're setting yourself up for misery. But most people go, oh, I don't want to do what other people aren't doing because they're going to judge and criticize me. These days, when someone judges and criticizes me and go, I get this all the time. I get people who say to me, you know, that Mojo guy, he's a rich bastard. He rips everyone off. He doesn't give a shit about people. He's always about money. No. What I do is I give so much of a shit about people is that I made sure that I mastered my finances first and did what other people were afraid to do, which is I started saving money even when I didn't have money. I started investing money in the right things, and I worked on my mindset. I invested $1 million before I made my first $1 million on learning. I spent almost every cent I would get paid from a client, and I would go and buy books, and I would read, and I would go to seminars, and I would study. I remember going to a seminar when I first started, and I spent my whole wage on going to that event. And I remember I got asked out to dinner from some of the participants, and I couldn't even afford to eat. Okay, because that's how dedicated I was. I knew that the more that I learned, the more confident I would be and the better decisions I would make. So I invested. Now I get people who say, oh, you're lucky, Mojo. Maybe I'm not lucky. Maybe I made the decisions that other people were afraid to make. Okay. When I quit as a diesel mechanic and stopped going to the pub every night after work, all my friends said, you're a wanker, you think you're better than us, because they were trying to guilt me back into doing what they do. But I knew that that wasn't going to lead to success. So I went out and did the opposite thing. And they criticized me, they gave me shit. So what I realized over time is that criticism is feedback, not on you, it's where other people are. So if someone says, you're an asshole, you only give a shit about money, I can tell you already where they're at. They don't give a shit. They're an asshole to themselves, and they care so much about money that they worked for money and they've given up on their dreams. And they don't care about themselves. Okay, I care about myself so much. I make sure that I'm financially stable so that I can do what I love and I don't have to stress about shit. I need to do this. I don't need to do anything. Okay, I come to work every day because I love doing this stuff. And the best thing is that I value myself and I value what I do. And I reinvest the majority of the money that I make into learning and studying and teaching and doing all this stuff. And so because of that, I get to do what I love. And hopefully I get to inspire a small percentage of the population who have courage and who are committed to wanting to grow. And hopefully I help them grow. Okay, because when I die on my deathbed, I want to look back and go, you know what, even if I change one person's life, actually, I'll rephrase that. I don't change anyone's life. I'm a catalyst to change. Because I think when people say, I had this on the weekend, I was at a wedding. Someone said to me, I was introduced and they introduced me. There was a few people, I was at a wedding and I saw Sophie on here tonight. Sophie was there, but I got introduced as the Mojo Master and people were saying, you know, this guy changed my life. And I said, look, I don't change anyone's life because I don't make the decision to change. I don't have the courage to do that for you. So when someone makes the decision to change, they're the one with the courage, they're the one who committed, and they're the one who did something for themselves. I can't take that away from them. I was just the catalyst that gave them the knowledge and the tools, and it was my expertise that put everything in a way that they could understand. But in saying that, I don't create the change. They created the change. And that's what I love about our community is we have a lot of courageous people that want to make change. So what was the question, Bonnie?
I knew that was coming. How do we build strong habits?
Habits. So anyway, getting back to habits. When I looked at a lot of studies around habit creation, what I found was that the majority of studies were done on mice. Now, when we understand the brain structures of mice, they're different than humans. And it's because humans have similar brain structures to humans when we're emotional. So I'll just go over the most simple neuroscience I can in this way. We've got the reptile brain or the crocodile brain that you've probably heard of. Now that's part of the brain stem and the hypothalamus. And it's part of the autonomic, I guess you could say autonomic nervous system. It runs our heartbeat, it runs, breathing and respiration and those sort of things. To an extent, this is very simplified. So if you're a neuroscientist, please don't send me death threats and hate mail afterwards. But it is accurate. So when you look at a crocodile, when a crocodile is afraid, it snaps and it bites. But also, if a crocodile sees movement near the pond, it goes up to it and it snaps, because it's either food or a predator. And so it can't distinguish really too much between the two. It goes, I'm either going to bite to kill, to stop it from harming me, or I'm going to bite to kill, to eat. Now, that is the most primitive response. That's essentially a survival response. Now, humans have that survival response. When we feel massive amounts of fear, we can become super trigger and we can snap at things. And we snap and we just react. And we don't even know why. Some people are like, I don't fucking even know why I said what I said. The reason is because in that moment, you had so much fear or worry or concern or stress or pressure in your life that you just became so reactive. You went to the most primitive structure, which was survival. And that's what it's there for, survival. Then we go to a more evolved structure, and that's called the monkey brain. That's where our emotional system lives. Now, that there you'll sometimes hear as the limbic system. So when we get emotional, our emotions are there partially to help us to survive. We start to learn what feels good, what feels bad, and we start to navigate life. We go, if something feels good, it's probably okay for us, or it's probably helps our life. And if something feels bad, it's probably hindering our life. So we start to navigate life in that manner. But it also, part of the mammalian system or the monkey system is we started to learn how to live in groups. So if you're a crocodile, crocodiles don't tend to swim together in groups. This is my area. All I'm here to do, I want food, I want safety, and I want to breed. That's essentially a crocodile brain. Now, monkeys came along, and monkeys, they go, well, we're vulnerable to things like a crocodile or a leopard or whatever. So what we need a community of other monkeys, because while I'm sleeping, I want to know I'm protected. That if something's moving out here, I can react and I can freak out, and the monkeys go, make all this noise, and all the other monkeys wake up and they all react. So that system is set up so that we start to see how other things in the monkey system respond. So part of that system, we worry about what other people think, and we worry about fitting in. Because back in the old days, thousands of years ago, millions of years ago, or whatever your belief systems are, but based on evolutionary theory, is when Bronwyn went to sleep tonight, I'd sit up and watch. Okay, and all the other monkeys are asleep. And if there's something, I'm going to alert them. They're going to wake up, and we're all going to survive together. So we start to want to survive in groups. And that's where we start to create our group identity. And we run more based on our emotions. Now, if I just walked around to all the other monkeys and said, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, and fuck you, the other monkeys go, get out of our tribe. And tonight I could die, because if I sleep, I could get attacked. So what I now need to do is I need to start doing things like empathizing and making sure that everyone else is okay. And, because I want to fit in. Now that's all okay. It's part of how we grow as people. But then the problem becomes, we want to evolve, and we go, you know what? I don't want to really fit into a whole bunch of people that are struggling and are stressed out and are frustrated, but I feel like that's my friendship circle. And then you start to move away and you start to grow, and your friends go, you know what? You think you're better than us. And you go, oh shit, I better not be better than them. So let's just calm it all down. And I'm sure, let me know on here if you've ever done this before, where you hold yourself back to fit in. And that's that primitive monkey brain trying to fit in. Okay. And then you go to make decisions and you go, this is really what I want to do. And you go, oh shit, what will my partner think? What does my husband or my wife think? What will my kids think? What will my parents think? And so now all your decisions are about the tribe and about fitting in. But you're unhappy. You want to do more with your life. You want to be a leader, but you can't be a leader because you're too busy trying to fit in. Now, the more evolved part of the brain, over thousands of years of evolution, we've developed this thing called a neocortex. It's that wrinkly thing on the outside of our brain. In there's a part of the brain called the prefrontal cortex, which is now known as sometimes you hear it called the executive center, the frontal lobe, or the prefrontal cortex. In there, that part of our brain is the most evolved part of the brain. That part of the brain allows us to be more creative. So we're the most creative animals on the planet. We can problem solve better than any other animal. I know a lot of people say, well, monkeys feel what we feel, or animals feel what we feel, but that's not true. They don't think differently. You won't see a camel walking with a watch on. Okay, I've never seen a horse driving a Ferrari with a Rolex. Okay, they're things that humans have created because we live differently. We invented electricity, or we learned how to harness electricity, I guess you could say. So humans are very intelligent. Now, we've developed that layer of the brain. Some other animals have it as well, just in different ways or different forms, like dolphins and so on. But we can think through things differently. So when we're working in our values, our prefrontal cortex lights up. So when you live your highest values, you become more reliable. You become more dependent as a person. You become more independent as an individual. You start to become more of a leader. You don't get so driven by your emotions. You become driven by a future mission and future planning. And so you become more understanding of things. You become more wise and intelligent and not so much reactive. And what neuroscience has shown is that the prefrontal cortex down regulates the emotional system. So when something goes wrong, you'll see someone who is more intelligent. When people are reacting and they're freaking out, the intelligent person comes along and goes, look, let's just stop and let's think through this. Because that's what they're used to doing. They don't respond emotionally to things. They respond through intelligent ways of thinking. Okay. And that's someone who's learned how to use that part of their brain. Now, all of us can become emotionally reactive when we're living in our lower values, not our high values. This is why I go so deep into value system in our leadership courses, in our culture courses, in our business courses, in our coaching courses, and in Thrive Time. Because every time you drop into the emotional center of the brain, your prefrontal cortex starts down regulating. But the more you live your values, the more that part of the brain upregulates. So you become more creative, you become a better problem solver. Now, when we have challenges in our life, we want to solve problems better. And we do that through that executive prefrontal cortex. Also, I talk about this as well. We become more attentive. So when we live in our lower values, we have more things like attention deficit disorder. So I have been known to have ADD. Okay. Now, in fact, when you study it, I probably have ADHD, and I'm mental. Like I'm a nutcase. If you're around me, my energy is ridiculously high most of the time, and I'm intense. I'm an intense person. So I would be labeled as ADD or ADHD. Now, when I can sit there when I'm learning and I'm studying, and I can sit there for hours studying, hours without moving. You can get a kid with ADD and put them in front of a computer game. They'll sit there for 6 hours, not even taking a wee. But you put them in a schooling system where they can't perceive how it's helping them play video games, and they start to run amok because they're now driven by their emotions and their reactions more than they're driven by that prefrontal cortex. So this is the reason why I go so in depth into this stuff, especially in Thrive Time. So in our habits, we want to live more in our executive center. But with those studies that I was talking about, when they do studies on habits, they tend to use mice. And then what they do is they use things like cocaine, which is highly addictive, and sugar as a reward. So what they do is they look at a mouse, they put a mouse in a maze. They get the mice to run through the maze. And then at the end, they go, here's some cocaine. And the mouse goes, okay, cool, I get rewarded. Then they put the mouse back in and they make the mouse, and it gets rewarded. So most of the studies that are done on habit creation are done from mice reacting and responding to a reward mechanism that is highly addictive. The average person creates habits that are highly addictive, which lead to problems. Cocaine is not a good reward. But people are addicted to spending money. They're addicted to receiving praise from others. They're addicted to buying shit that they can't afford or overspending. They're addicted to sugar. They're addicted to food. They're addicted to alcohol. They're addicted to drugs. They're addicted to drama or over dramatization. That's why people have to watch the news, because it's drama. When in fact, that's not the world. It's just very small things that happen within the world that get overinflated and shown as the world. Oh, big pun. But when we look at it, 7 billion people woke up today and they did exactly the same thing that they did last Thursday morning. They probably woke up, got dressed, ate the same breakfast, or the same 4 things that they've always eaten for breakfast on rotation. They call that variety. And then they get up, they go to work, they get home, they complain about the same shit that they complained about last Thursday night. They watch the news, watch TV, complain about stuff and spend a little bit of time with family, and they went to bed. Same thing they did last Thursday. That's not fun though. So the news don't report that 7 billion people did the same shit. They report on very small things. But because a lot of people are addicted to Trump, they go, oh no, the world's going to end. Oh no, this bad thing, a car crash, 3 people died. There's 7 billion people on the planet. If 3 people die, it's irrelevant. But the media make it relevant. But it serves as an addiction process where people get caught up in that stress. That's in the monkey brain. So when it comes to habits, when we go through pain and then we use pleasure as a motivator. So anytime you use pain, you will also need pleasure. And I talk about, I'll just quickly go into this. Anytime you have an impulse, there's a fear driving it. So when I have someone who says, I overspent, someone overspent because they're trying to get away from something. They're trying to get away from pain. They're trying to get away from suffering. They're trying to get away from struggle. So the pleasure pain model of psychology is based on the animalistic or the primitive mind, the primitive brain. It's not based on the prefrontal cortex and the intelligent way of thinking. So what I try to teach is don't read those studies. If you want to create good habits, it comes from doing something that you perceive serves your values, serves your mission, has a purpose, and you do it because you love to do it. And then when you do it, you start to create good habits. And you will make mistakes and you'll get caught in your emotional states, but you can pull yourself back out of them pretty quickly and drive yourself back up to the prefrontal cortex. So it stops you from doing crazy things. But the majority of people think that habits are, if I go to the gym and I suffer for the next 6 months and I'm on this crazy diet of eating lettuce and chicken and broccoli that tastes like shit, and I hate doing this stuff and I can't eat anything. And then you watch them. I've worked with people like this, the bodybuilding industry. I worked with some of the top bodybuilders in the world and sports models, and they will sit in their car and binge eat chocolate. They'll drive home after being on a chicken, broccoli, and rice diet, that they're getting ready for competition. And then they're sitting in a car park at Coles around the corner eating chocolate bars because they're ashamed. Then they beat themselves up because they feel guilty. Then they wake up tomorrow and they over-exercise. They go to the gym and they push themselves. I got to burn off the calories, and they're burning off the guilt. That's what they're trying to burn off. They're not burning off the calories. They're burning off the guilt. Then they go, oh, okay, yep, now I feel better. And then at the end of the day, they've done their 2 workouts. They've pushed themselves really hard, and their brain goes, we need a reward. We did really well today. We burn extra calories. And they go, does that mean I can eat a muffin? I'm definitely. And then they eat a little bit of the muffin, and then their brain goes, fuck it, we'll start tomorrow. Go to the chocolate bar. I'm going to go to BP and I'm going to get a 2-liter iced coffee and I'm going to drink that as well because I'm going to start tomorrow. And off goes this volatile cycle again. That if I punish myself, I can reward myself. And when I reward myself, then I'm going to punish myself again. And it's this vicious cycle of habits that they're trying to create. Don't do that. So it's a completely destructive way. If that's the way you want to destroy your brain and your self-worth and your self-love and your self-respect, then follow that pattern. The best way of doing it is, if this sounds like anyone who hasn't done Thrive Time, if you've never done our Thrive Time event, come along. Because once you understand how to break these patterns, it'll change your life. The only thing is you've just got to do the work. Like, I still have those patterns come up. And when those patterns come up, I feel the little rub and I go, I know I need to do my work. And I just get there and I do the work. I don't hold off on it. I don't wait for 6 months and go, oh, it's not that bad. Because I know that it will get that bad. Okay, so habit creation is really around your values, your purpose, your mission, clear goals, and emotional balance. Exactly what we teach at Thrive Time. But you can, if you do study a lot of psychology, you'll see that a lot of it is driven by work really, really hard, endure a lot of pain, and then at the end reward yourself because you'll feel really, really good. And you'll want to do it again because you feel good. But what will happen is you'll have a life where you spend the majority of your life enduring pain to have very small rewards. Not the best way.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we can all relate to that story of my life before I started the working.
Shit, I lived the majority of my life like that. Okay, those patterns still pop up. They pop up for everyone.
Oh, absolutely. But just now it's like, because I have the tools to implement, it's like I can choose to sit there for an hour. I can choose to sit there for a day rather than, months or years or decades. I was sitting in a horrible habit cycle for decades. And just to understand it was next level. Okay, next question. Why do people consistently self-sabotage their goals and results?
All self-sabotage is, and this is the most simple way I can explain it. Self-sabotage is just a way of destroying. Self-sabotage is a way of destroying things to go back to your highest values. So what I'll say is that, I'll give you an example. Here's a really good one. I worked with a woman who came to Thrive Time actually, but I met her in an event interstate, and she said, Michael, I've destroyed my business, and she destroyed $1 million business. And anyway, I went back and I was talking to her and I said, let's just quickly get your values clear. And I'm quite quick at doing this. Normally it takes a little while to learn this stuff, like when you do our events. But over time, you get really good at assessing your own values and other people's values. So I just listened to her talk and I started mapping out her values, and then we got the priority order right. And I said, your number one value is family, isn't it? And she said, yes. And I said, and your second highest value is beauty. And she said, yep. And I said, beauty, like family's number one, but when the family's running well, you always look after your beauty. And she said, yep, it's super important to me. And I said, then after that, it's health. So we've got family, beauty, health. Then after that, it was, there was a few other values in there as well, like connecting with people, learning was in there as well, like in her top 5 or 6. Then as it went down, it got into business and then wealth creation. And I said, so let me go through and let me explain exactly what happened. You tell me if I'm right. And I said, so when you built your business, you built it around making everyone feel like family. And she said, 100%. She said to me, my business was my family were in my business. And she said, in fact, 3 of my family members worked in the business. And then she said, and then all my friends, I got to they were our clients. Then from there, I brought in more people. And we had this amazing family environment. And I said, look, and it was in the beauty industry, wasn't it? Yep. And it also served as health. So it was health and beauty. Yep. So we've got family, health, and beauty, top 3 values being served. Then I said, okay, and then let me guess. You then went on and there was lots of learning. So you learned lots of stuff about business and you learned lots of stuff about beauty and lots of stuff about health and lots of stuff about family dynamics and relationships and so on. Yep. Anyway, we ended up getting down and I said, and then what happened was you built your business and you loved the business because it served all those other values. Yep. And then you started making money. Yep. Then after a while, let me guess what happened. After a while, the business started consuming you. And so you started working all the time and you spent less time with family. Yep. And you started getting more stressed out. Yep. And then you started getting more and more stressed and you spent less time on your beauty. Yep. Then you started feeling more shit about yourself and shit about life. Yep. Then you started beating yourself up because you felt like you weren't connected with your family, your beauty had gone downhill, your health had turned to shit because you're working all the time and eating food on the run. And then you stopped connecting with people because you felt crap about yourself and the way that you looked and the way that you felt. And you felt like you couldn't connect with people. And you said, this is my story. And I said, that's because you started prioritizing the business and money over the higher values. So what happened was eventually you started destroying the business. You started destroying the business unconsciously. And you went through, and first of all, you destroyed money. When money was destroyed, it destroyed the business. Then when the business and money were destroyed, it destroyed a lot of the connections because you didn't want to be around people because you're ashamed. Then after that, you didn't want to connect with anybody else as well because you felt ugly and like you weren't beautiful and you probably put on weight and all that stuff. And she said, shit, this is my life story. And I said, at the end of it, let me guess, the only thing that was left was your family. She said, that was the only thing that was left in my life that was still around. I said, that's the self-sabotage pattern. You started prioritizing lower values over higher values and you will destroy your life in order to go back to the values that are unmet or unfulfilled within your own life. That's what we call self-sabotage. So for me, I know sometimes people come to me and they say, Michael, there's all this stuff that you need to do in the business. And I go, look, I'm going to take an hour out and I'm going to go on exercise because my second highest value is physical movement. If I don't move, I get stressed. So if there's lots of work on, I can give up exercising for a couple of days, but I'm going to be a prick of a person to be around. I'm going to be stressed out. I'm going to be angry. I'm going to be snappy. I'm going to be frustrated because I'm not working in my prefrontal cortex and my executive center. I'm going to drop back into my emotional center and my emotions are going to run me. And it's going to start to destroy my health. But I'm also going to destroy the business in the process because I'm going to be pissed off at everybody around me. And I've been in that place before. That's what we call a self-sabotage pattern. So once you understand your values, you understand your self-sabotage patterns. And once I get clear with a person's values, I can tell you all their sabotage patterns. Okay, because they're obvious.
Yeah, 1000%. That's one of the best tools I think I ever learned. Not only my values, but why I destroyed so much. And self-sabotage any of my goals. I don't know about anyone out there. Give us a like or a love, but who did the health goal every January? And then every January I'd sit there and go, here we are again. But until I got this right, my health didn't catch up until I got this right. Once I got this right, everything just fell into place for me health-wise. And yeah, it's crazy when you think about it, but it's exactly how it works, right?
I mean, it is ridiculous to think when you've done as much study as I have, and you know this, Bronnie, and for those of you who have done our events before, when you've studied as much as I've studied, you start to realize that the brain drives everything. The brain drives your physical health. Your brain drives the way you perform. Your brain drives the way you communicate. It's your life. Your brain is in here, okay? Because nothing else exists apart from what we create in our head. In fact, when you do pain science, pain is created in the brain. So our reality and our perception is created within our brain. Now, if we're not working on our brain, we are leaving so much on the table. And I just find that the average person leaves so much on the table, okay? And I've worked with tens of thousands of people over the years. And I would say that almost every person that I speak to on a regular basis or even I meet, when they start talking, there's part of me that goes, I can tell that there's so much more inside that head and there's so much more capability and potential in that person. They just can't see it. Okay. And that's why I do what I do and why I love it so much. And for those of you who have been in our community, you'll see me like that. I get really pissed off when people don't want to push themselves hard because I see their greatness. They don't. Okay, I guarantee you, I see people's greatness more than the average person sees their own greatness, or in fact, anyone. Okay, I've worked with billionaires, and I go, "Is that really where you want to be? You're smart, you're intelligent. Look at where you've got, and you're leaving so much on the table. You've got so much more. You can change the world should you choose to."
Yeah.
Okay, there is greatness in every person because I believe that there's greatness in every child, and I've never met a kid that's not creative. They can find ways of doing things. I watched my niece and nephew as they grew up, where they would want a cookie and they would do anything to get that cookie. I watch the average adult, they're like, oh, yeah, I want to do something different, but I'm going to watch TV, it's too hard. And you just watch people give up on their goals. Like, what happened to that childlike enthusiasm? The energy that kids have, their creativity, the problem solving, the negotiating skills. You know, if I don't get my own way, I'll throw a tantrum. If that doesn't work, I'll smile. If not, I'll beg. Like, the average person just goes, oh, it's too hard. Ah, fuck it, I'll start next week. Like, it's just, they lose that. And I want to know why.
Yeah. I remember being there though, and it was just because I was unclear on who I was and my identity. I was actually showing up how I thought other people wanted me to live my life rather than what actually intrinsically drove me to achieve and be fulfilled. So once I got that key in place, well, you've seen it over the last 3 years, it's like game on.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Cool.
Okay.
I think I know we've got probably a few more questions, but we probably need to jump into some Q&As now. By the way, what I'll do is I will grab, I think some of my team are online. What I'll do is because we're going over goals and setting your year up, we've just put out our 2021 planner, which you can download for free. So if anyone wants that, it's free. I think we put it out every year. I think last year we probably ran it till September, and we still had people downloading 2020s in September. But look, if anyone wants it, you can. It's free. You just got to put your name and email, and we send it to you. But also in there, once you get it, I know you can also, once you've got the planner, you can also book in with some of my coaches or some of my team. And what they'll do is they'll be able to help you to work through it to get you clear on this year. And part of tonight, you know, for me, I think that it's important to be surrounded with a community of people who want to be better. I remember a quote years ago I read, and it said, I don't want to be the smartest person in a room. I want to be in a room full of people getting smarter. That's the community that I always wanted to create, was just people who want to grow and get smarter. And, you know, I sure as shit don't know everything. And I learn a lot from people in our community. We have a lot of intelligent people in our community. But I just love helping people to grow. So please, you know, take the opportunity to download that, to use it. And also there's a free link in there as well once you get the email where you can book in for that planner as well. Delene said in there, the planner is magic. Thank you. So you've already got it. So if one of my team can pop the link in there, grab that. Also, I've spoken a lot about Thrive Time as well. We've got one coming up in a couple of months as the newest edition. But once you sign up to do that course, we've got it all online now. So essentially we send you that course right now, which is a pre-recording of last time. And you also get a free ticket, which we've never done before. Before you used to get the free ticket, before you used to buy the event ticket, you'd come to the event and then that's all you got. Now you get the last event for free. So I'm already getting people to think through and to get clear straight away. Like once you commit to it, you pay whatever it is. I think at the moment we've got it's pre-sale or whatever, early bird. So I think you save about $1,000 on it. Once you commit to it, within 24 hours, my team send you the link and you start watching Thrive Time straight away. So you can start going through, getting clear with your values, your purpose, your mission. I go through and I show you how to use the emotional balancing process. Plus you get access to our Mojo Insiders group, which there's a lot of people in here in the Mojo Insiders group, which is our inner community where I go in a lot more in detail into a lot of this stuff. And normally every month I do a Q&A in there and all that stuff to help people to keep growing. And it also opens up to other events which we don't publicize to the general public, which are more advanced. So all of those things can happen, but you also get a free ticket to the live Thrive Time. So not only can you start straight away, you also get a ticket to come in, and I'm always updating it because as I learn new research and new information, I'm always putting that into our events. So we've had people who do our events last year and the event has already changed this year because there's new research. Yeah. And so, yeah, all of our events are always changing because I'm always adding new research, new information. So I think my team will chuck that in as well, the link for Thrive Time if anyone wants that. Or if not, please feel free to hit me up with a message and just say, look, I'm not sure if the event's right for me. What do you think? And I'll give you my honest opinion. I'll ask you questions. I'll get one of the team, Bronwyn or one of the team will be able to give you a call and chat you through it. I don't like anyone doing our events if they're not ready to do them. Every now and again, very rarely does it happen, but every now and again, I'll speak to someone and say, look, I don't think you're ready yet. But it does happen. That does happen. We've had people wanting to sign up to our business course and I say, you're not ready yet. Go and do some other stuff and then come back and do our stuff. But the majority of the time, I think when people are ready, they're ready. So yeah, we'll put that in there as well. Oh, it says the link isn't active.
We'll sort it. We'll have it sorted.
Yeah, we'll have it sorted.
Yeah.
But yeah, so if we can chuck in the Thrive Time link for anyone who wants it, or if not, shoot me a message. Just in the page here, there's a thing. All right, Q&As. Has anyone got any questions?
I've done the scroll through. There's not many questions. There's just a lot of comments with people relating. There's not questions that I can find.
I saw one from Katie here. It says, what's your opinion on vision boards? I personally feel identifying what we want is the key to manifesting things with work, of course, but I've almost found anything important each year actualize. Okay, look, with vision boards, depends. It all depends. Okay, you'll hear me say that a lot. It depends. Providing you don't have fantasies, most people set themselves up for failure because they have fantasies. I remember when I was younger and I used to go to a lot of personal development courses and I would jump around and high five people and I'd get all excited and all pumped up. You've got to remember that a law of physics, which everything runs on physics, chemistry is based off of physics, biology is based off of chemistry. So there's a process that we go through. Our body is essentially a physics mechanism. Now, when we look at physics, you can't have something that goes up without it coming back down here on Earth anyway. So as our emotional states go up and we become hyperactive, we set ourselves up for hypoactive. So we have massive peaks and troughs in our emotional states. Now, when you go to personal development events and you fist pump in the air and you woo and you get all excited, what will happen is you over exaggerate your skill set and you over exaggerate what you can do in a small amount of time. So what I used to do was I would go to those events and I'd go, you know what? I'm going to be a millionaire in 2 years. Or no, I'm going to be a millionaire in a year. And that year I might have made $30,000. And then the next year I made $30,000. And I go, I'm going to be a millionaire next year. But what I was doing was I was setting myself up for absolute destruction. I would put a massive house on there and a yacht and a private jet and, you know, supercars and, you know, all of this cool shit, traveling all around the world. But when you look at it, how the hell in 12 months are you going to get a private jet, a yacht? But it was because I was over exaggerating what I could do in a small amount of time. And I think this is very, very common. I see this a lot in different quotes, but most people underestimate what they can do over a long period of time and overestimate what they can do in a short period of time. Okay, because habits take time to build. Studies on habit creation say that it takes anywhere from around about 26 days. Okay, so it's about 26 to 365 days to build a proper habit. Now, if you come to Thrive Time and you learn how to link your values, you can do it in about an hour. You can actually create a whole habit in around about an hour, okay, depending on how well it's linked already. But the average is, if you're just doing it the same as every other average person, it's going to take you 21 to 365 days. Now, what I've found is that if you're creating vision boards and you're thoughtful about the vision board and you're setting goals and it's based on a mission and it's serving a purpose and it relates to your value system, then it's cool because you're putting what you want in front of yourself consistently as a reminder. Now, every morning when I wake up, I read my vision. Now, that's essentially a vision board that I've created in my head. And I know where I want to go, and I know where I'm going next year and what that looks like and what it feels like, and it evokes it. But if I were to put a whole bunch of shit in there that's outside of my values, that doesn't serve a purpose, that's not part of my mission, and I don't have a clear way of getting there through goal setting, I'm just setting myself up for the next self-destructive, self-beat up, I fucked up again and I'm still not there state. Okay, so I don't think that it's a good thing. So it just depends how you use it. Okay, I think almost all tools when it comes to human behavior and health as well, it's like a gun. Okay, they can save your life, but they can also kill you. It just depends how you want to use it. Okay. All right, so we've got one here. Do you want to read? There's one there from Claire.
Oh, Claire, did you want to go the next one after Katie?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Matthew wrote, what is the biggest learning to date that changed your life the most?
Today or yesterday, or I can't say. I honestly can't say. I can say I get asked this a lot. Like I get asked, what's my favorite book that I've read? It depends because, sometimes I read a book and I go, shit, that was profound. And then 3 months later, I read another book and I go, shit, that was profound. It just depends, I think, where you're at as to what you read and what you learn. I would say probably the biggest learning that I've had in the last couple of months is that every day is practice. That's it. That's my learning. Every day is practice. Okay. Today I wake up, I practice being a better person. That's it. Don't take shit seriously. When I used to go out and train in the gym, I would go out to the gym and I'd go, right, I'm achieving these goals and I've got to push myself hard and I've got to achieve all this stuff. And what would happen? I'd do it for a while and then I would just find that I'd lose my inspiration to want to train. And then I'd have like a week off or a couple of days off and I'd start feeling shit and beat myself. Whereas when I go into the gym now, I just go, well, today's practice. I get to practice doing something. I don't have to train to be better than, I don't have to train to be the best. I don't have to lift heavier than what I did. What I want to do is I want to find a weak point and I want to work on it. So whether that's some more flexibility or some more endurance, and I want to find something that maybe I don't have a skill set in to make it better. And it makes me feel a lot better because when I was younger, I used to be pretty, not ignorant, but I would train because I wanted to look a certain way. And that was based on the insecurities of being picked on so much as a kid, I would say. I was a little fat, chubby, redheaded kid who had freckles and was white and pasty. And so, I used to think that I looked like shit. And, I never had a girl was never attracted to me, I don't think, until I was like 19, properly anyway. And so I just felt, my mates had girlfriends at like 13. And I'm sitting there, I liked girls. I was around girls all the time, but they would always classify me as a friend. And I related that to the way that I looked. So for me, when I started training, it was about the way I appeared. But what I found was I would only train in areas that made me feel strong and that I felt like I was achieving in, but they were already my strengths. I wasn't working on my weaknesses. And after a while, I became really inflexible. I had injuries, I had pain, and I'd push through the pain, and it just made things worse. So what I learned is that you need to identify weak points in your life. And the cool thing is that it's not a weak point. It's the next thing to work on. And so I just work on it and I enjoy the process of getting better. When I pick up a book and I've got no idea about the topic that I'm reading, I don't go, oh shit, I don't know about this. I look at it and I go, cool, I get to learn something. I get to practice something new. Okay. And so I think that was a huge learning for me. And I've become a lot more, I won't say passive, but just chilled out. Because I don't need to be better than anyone. I just need to be better than the way that I was yesterday. If I can learn one thing today, I'm better than what I was yesterday. And I think that's really calmed me down a lot.
Awesome. So the next question is, and I hope I pronounce this right, is it Salvatore wrote, after having a busy period of growth, what's the best way to reset and rejuvenate to continue to drive growth? Feeling a bit of burnout feeling a bit of burnout but still have the fire in the stomach, but feeling flat.
I think once you understand your values and you're really, really clear with them, what I would suggest is to understand what your cycles are. So we all have cycles. Like I know that I'm going to talk a little bit about hormones for a second. So we have a daily cycle, which is called our circadian rhythm, and it's based on the sun from sunrise to sunset. And it's part of that cycle. So we know that in the morning when the sun hits the horizon, adrenaline rises to wake us up if your hormones are working correctly. And at nighttime, or about 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, melatonin starts to kick up and it makes us a little bit drowsy. And then we start to get ready for bed. Now, that cycle is a cycle that's based on a sun cycle. Then we've also got lunar cycles. Now, the female menstrual cycle is based on about a 28-day cycle, which is a lunar cycle. It's a month. Now, we all know that there are those cycles, but we all have different cycles. And it also relates to our values. So I have cycles that I go through. Now, I know that I love learning and I learn almost every day. But I go through stages, for instance, like if I go away and I study for a week and I'm intense into studying, or if I'm putting together a new course, I might wake up at 6 a.m. in the morning, train or 5:30, train from up until maybe 7:30 or 8 o'clock, shut my office door, and I'm in here until 10:30 at night. And I've got 40 tabs open on my desktop computer. And if you see my computer, it's the biggest monitor you can buy, right? It's a 40-something inch monitor. It's huge, okay? At the moment, it's like that much on my screen. So I have this huge monitor, all these tabs open. I'm researching things. I've got books open on the desk. I'm highlighting things and I'm adding stuff into content. I got to lie down on the ground for an hour and I'm thinking through things and how does it all fit into each other. After I do that, I'm like, right, I'm done. And I'll take a week or two off. If someone puts a book in front of me and says, read that, I'm like, I'm tapping out. But that's my cycle. So I know that normally after I go through an intensive period like that, it normally takes about a week for my brain to start to become inquisitive enough to want to learn. I know that when I go through hard training sessions or exercise sessions, I'll normally go through about a 6-week cycle where if I'm training and doing a lot of strength training, I need about 4 days to a week off of just rest. Now, that doesn't mean that I completely stop doing anything. What it means is I'll go for walks instead. I'm just not lifting heavy weights or whatever. So you need to learn what your cycles are. You'll have cycles within your own value system. Sometimes people go, I've been away with my family on a 2-week holiday. I just want to work. Like I need to sort of not be around my family for a good couple of days or a week. Some of you know that, but you'll feel guilty. Like, oh, I shouldn't feel like that because everyone tells me that family are important. But the truth is that's part of your cycle. If you spend too much time with family, you want to spend time away from them. And that's okay. It's normal. So you just need to understand your cycles. So I'm not sure, but you'll probably know what those cycles are.
Awesome. So Claire has a question. What's your quick opinion, and I think you've just covered a little bit of it, on unbalanced hormones influencing the use of the prefrontal cortex versus the lower brain function? Do you know much about that?
That's a deep question. And I've got an event called Vitalis, which is it's essentially a health mastery course. And I go deep into psychosomatics, so the way that the brain triggers responses in the body. And I've come at it from a scientific point of view. I also look at gut-brain function. And what I've been able to find out, we've had doctors come to my events before. So medical doctors, we've had psychologists. When I piece it together in a causal chain and I put it up on the board, they sit there and they go, because our thoughts drive everything. So our thoughts actually drive our hormonal states. Our hormones can shift in a microsecond based on a change of perception. But what happens is over time, if you keep reinforcing those same thinking patterns, you trigger the same neurochemical responses and chemical responses in the body, then our cellular structures start to alter and change, and we have epigenetic changes. Those epigenetic changes, after a while, they become identified by certain, by biologists or by doctors or whatever, and they say, well, you've got a problem in your body. But normally when you trace it back, there's normally a point of reference where a person has a massive shift in their life. There's a lot of scientific evidence coming out now that people have major health crises after major trauma. Okay. Now, is it coincidence, or was it the major trauma that drove the change in perception about life that then created the dis-ease within the body? I believe, from what I've studied and from a lot of people that I've worked with major health crisis, that a lot of it is tied to thought processes and certain incidences that happen in their life that you can trace back. Just most health professionals never spend the time to really sit a person down and hold them super accountable to their thinking. I had a guy only a couple of days ago I was working with, and I asked him questions. What happened? Oh, I don't know. Life was going pretty good and then everything fell apart. And I said, bullshit. Go to the moment that you realize everything turned to shit. And when we went back to the moment, there was a trigger. There was a thought process trigger that drove the whole thing. Okay, and it changed. So, I mean, I'll give you an example, and I won't get too deep into this. But if I threw a snake or a lion or something that you're afraid of in the room, instantly your perception from sight or sound triggers instantly, and it alters your neurochemistry and the chemistry of your body and your hormonal states in a split second. It changes that fast by the time you're not even aware of it. And that's why I tend to disagree with biologists sometimes, because if they take a blood test and they say, well, this person has high cortisol levels and it's that they've got a hormonal problem. Why? Cortisol is a stress response. So what's stressing the person out? Now, most people don't hold their clients accountable. I hold people accountable. I will sit there and work with them. Sometimes it takes hours, and we go back and we find out what's really triggering and driving those responses. Okay. In fact, I worked with, and this doesn't happen regularly, but I worked with a person who had Hashimoto's, which is a autoimmune disease. And 12 months later, she sent me a message and said, I'm all clear of Hashimoto's. Okay, now that was because we had identified, and especially her, she put in a lot of hard work. But prior to that, she'd done juice fasting. She'd done a whole bunch of things. She'd gone down the medical route. She'd gone down the alternative route. And when we got back and we had started identifying patterns of thinking that had drove the stress and those stress responses within the body. And by the way, the stress response in the body will change all other responses, because stress is about survival. So if you have other hormonal issues, they can be driven by the stress response. And if you don't identify why the stress response is consistently triggered, you might not find out why other hormones are out of balance. Okay, so we've had plenty of people who come and do Thrive Time. They can't fall pregnant and have tried IVF, and then after the event, once they start balancing out their thinking, they fall pregnant. Now, I can't say that, we can't promise that. It just seems to be a pattern of behavior. So, that happens.
Okay, awesome. Got another one from Heather. What was your first project at the very beginning of starting your business?
The first project is trying not to shit my pants about money. Okay. I don't know. What you'll realize is that, I get to work with some serious heavy hitters in business, like, high level professionals that run, they might have 4,000 or 5,000 staff and they work in corporate business. And when I talk with them, they talk exactly like this, but in work environments, they don't talk like this. So, but the truth is that the first project that I worked on, that I remember working on as a project, was a seminar, an event on health and mindset. And I think we had like 5 people rock up. The first thing that I ever pitched, the first sale that I ever pitched in an event, I spent 6 months working on a 10 CD audio program called, I think You Can Change Your Life or something like that. It was a 10-disc audio. It took me 6 months to create. Most of it was from procrastination. That's why it took 6 months. But it took 6 months to create. And I think all up in total, I sold 5 copies. That was it. And looking back now, it was the worst thing that I'd ever done. But it was part of the journey. And I remember pitching that at an event. The first event, we put all of our money, every cent we had, on running a national tour. And we went to Sydney, the very first place. We'd run out of money. And we're staying in this little shitty hotel that we could hardly afford. And we ran this event. People came up to me and said, Michael, loved your talk, loved what you did. And they left. And I was like, everyone loved it. Why didn't they buy anything? And I got a harsh realization that you need to learn techniques to sell, you need to learn techniques to communicate, you need to learn marketing, and I needed to understand human behavior at a higher level. But I've made so many mistakes. Like, I understand business is a warrior's game. You wake up, you get the shit kicked out of you, and you go to bed. That's business. Okay. And every now and again, you celebrate a win.
Okay, next question. Are your courses about investment options, property, shares, super funds, or mainly business and self-development?
It's about business and well, I get asked what category I'm in. Now, the thing that I think I do better than almost anyone on the planet at the moment is human behavior and optimizing human performance. So the way that I operate, like, I'm not a motivational guy. I don't do the rah-rah and jump around. What I understand is I'm always looking about how people achieve. So, yeah, what I found was like I used to go to all the rah-rah events, and some of my original events used to be about being motivated all the time. But what I found was I was just crashing and burning, so I couldn't keep teaching it. But the more that I've started understanding human behavior is investing. I've worked with one of my private clients went from a $70 million property development company to $1 billion in 6 years. And I worked with him at that $70 million mark. And I think that partly was what helped him take off. A lot of it was grunt and determination and so on. But what I find is that most people make mistakes in investing in wealth creation when it comes to their mindset and their psychology. They do stupid things. They're not thinking correctly about investing. So the way that I see it is, if you want to get good at making money, work on your mindset. You want to get good at sales, work on your mindset. You want to be a good marketer, work on your mindset. You want to improve your health, work on your mindset. You want to improve your family dynamics in your relationship, work on your mindset. Want to improve your career, work on your mindset. It's the thing that most people don't do. Do you know, when I first started in this industry, the only people who really were, apart from like some of the big motivational speakers around the world, the only people who really in a professional environment took mindset seriously were professional athletes. They were just starting to get in human behavior and psychologists into working with in the sports field. And now it's becoming more, people are way more aware of it. And I can't wait till we're like America. If you watch American TV, they go, oh yeah, I'm going to my therapist. And they talk openly about going to a therapist, because what they know is that until you work on your mindset, your life is a reflection of your mind. So, you know, in a response to the question, I work on optimizing human performance. That's the thing that I love doing more than anything. But I just perceive that there's not many things in life that a human can do that is outside of that. I mean, 80% of most businesses are human behavior. So you might have 20% technology these days, but even still, I have tech people come to me and they go, my business turned to shit. And I go, why is that? And they go, oh, the technology's crap. Who built the technology? People. It's human behavior. Leadership in business, human behavior. So that's what I think. And from what I've seen as well is, if I take a person who is really depressed or has a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, a lot of emotional stuff going on, and if you don't give them a reason to change, they won't change. What I've found is that if you show them a greater life, they will work hard to change. When you say to someone, you know what, I've got depression and I'm feeling depressed all the time, you go, well, we shouldn't have depression, and life, you know, life doesn't really feel that bad. And you use those sort of things and you go, well, now you need to be medicated and so on. By the way, some people do need that for a while, but it's not a good long-term strategy. And I've never found it to be a good long-term strategy. But most people don't change because they don't have a reason to change. When you start to get them really, really clear with a vision, a mission, a purpose and values, they go, I don't want to feel this way anymore. And they start to pull themselves out of the rut. So I think the greatest gift that I've been able to give people is a reason to want to grow in life and a reason to want to be great. Okay, that's what I love as well. So yeah.
I'm not sure how many more questions you want to answer, but the next one is, what's your advice to reprogram the subconscious mind due to set own values? Yep, I read that right. So what's your advice to reprogram the subconscious mind due to set own values?
Don't reprogram anything. I hated that the personal development industry or NLP or certain fields of psychology talk about changing values. You would only change your values if you perceive that your values are worth less than something else that you're comparing your current values to. You're a unique individual that has a gift. You're dishonoring your gift by wanting to change your values, and you're comparing your life to somebody else's, which is the reason why a lot of people get fucked up by doing personal development. Pardon my French, but I have to say it in a pretty blunt way because it pisses me off about our industry. When people go in, they go, I want to have a high value of wealth. Don't, because wealth creation creates its own problems. Okay, it doesn't make life better. Having more money doesn't make life any better. Having a business does not make your life any better. Okay, I tell people all the time, I wish, not really, but I say this as a provocative way. I wish I didn't have business as a high value, because business is a fucking nightmare. All I ever think about is business. I go to family functions, I'm thinking about business. I can spend time with family for a little bit and I want to go back and work in my business. Then every day I have challenges in marketing, sales, legal problems. I have accounting problems. I have the tax department wanting every day. And people go, I want to start a business because I get more freedom. And I'm like, you have no idea what you're talking about. That's like me saying to you, if you've got kids, I want to have kids so I can have more freedom. People will look at you as though you're insane. When people come to other people and say, I want to have a business so I get more freedom, are you insane? Are you like, how much crack can you smoke to say that? It's a trap. Okay. It just creates a whole bunch of new problems, the same as any other values. Okay. I love my family and I spend a bit of time with them, but they're not a super high value. But I have a high value in business. I have a high value in learning. Do you know the problem with learning is I learn and it just opens up a whole bunch of other questions. And what I'll also say is that your highest values also create your highest insecurities. So the more I learn, the dumber I feel. And so I've got to go and quench that insecurity by learning more. And the more I learn, the dumber I feel. So the more I keep learning. But that's the fulfilling part of life. So don't change your values. Your values are a gift. For everyone with a high value in something, there's someone with a low value in it. There are people in the world who couldn't give a shit about making money. There are people in the world who couldn't give a shit about owning a business. There are people around the world who don't care about having a family. But there are people who care about having a family. And that's what creates the spectrum throughout the world. There are 7 billion people on the planet with different value systems. And the majority of our society has been convinced that having wealth as a high value is going to make life better, and it doesn't. It's a myth. So don't do it. What I teach is if you want to make money, you want to figure out how to do it. And I'm just using money as an example. Figure out how to be the best within your values. Okay, I have a friend of mine, runs a multi-million-dollar business. Okay, extremely successful. And his highest value is teaching and educating kids. Now, if I said to you, go and work in childcare, you'll make a lot of money, most people go bullshit. But he has a high value in teaching and educating kids, and he also has a high value in business. So he put the two together and he makes a shitload of money. But he honored his value system. Okay, there are people out there who make hundreds of thousands of dollars by working in administration. It's just that they're the best administration people. There are people who make millions of dollars in marketing, but they're the best marketers. I meet so many people go, I want to start a marketing business. And I go, do you have a high value in marketing and a high value in business? Because if you don't start a marketing business. Go and work for someone, because you'll get weekends off. You'll get holidays. You want to start a business? Expect to work for the next 10 years without a holiday. And they go, oh, I don't want that. Well, how do you feel about going bankrupt? How do you feel about the tax department, chasing you up for cash? If you have a look at the failure rate of business as an example, it's around about, I think it's something like 97% of businesses don't make 10 years after they start. And the majority of businesses are self-employed, which means these are people who have jobs, who get paid a little bit more, and they have an ABN. But they also work more because they've got to do administration. They have to do their own tax. They have to do their own accounting. And so at the end of the month, really, if you look at it from a logical, intelligent perspective, they don't make any more money. In fact, they probably make less. If they work for someone else, they'd rock up, go to work, they go home, they hang out with their family, they go to the gym, and they don't stress about the business. So please do not alter your values. And when we come to subconscious patterning or unconscious patterning, be very, very careful with those languaging, because there is a massive difference between the unconscious and the subconscious, which I go over. But it has a lot to do with, in 2013, there was a study published that showed that for every memory we have a counterbalancing anti-memory, which shows that our brain creates 2 neurological circuits within the brain structure in any moment. And it does that because anytime we perceive a positive charge, it actually creates a negative charge in our brain at the same time, which will come back to haunt us in the future. That's why if you do things when you're elated, you'll eventually find out that there are problems with that, e.g. overspending money. I feel really good. This makes me I feel great in the moment. Oh crap, I've spent all my money, now I'm suffering. Those two thought processes are both in your brain. They're just not interlinked. That's why wisdom, someone who's wise sees both sides. I hope this is helping. I hope people understand, what I'm going through, and it just doesn't sound like gibberish.
Okay, so next question from Daylene. She's part of our community. So what would doing the work look like typically for you guys?
It's a broad. Sorry, what would a typical week look like?
Like, well, doing the work. What would doing the work look like typically for you guys? So doing our own work to keep ourselves.
Oh, okay. So like after you've done Thrive Time, the tools, how we implement that.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll give you my example. So every day this week, I've woken up and I journal almost every day. And anytime I have stress, I journal. This week, I have looked at my mission. I look at my mission every morning. And also, I'm very clear with my values. So essentially, I only do a couple of things in my whole life. I teach and I learn. Okay, now I teach and I learn from staff. So this morning, I woke up. I'll just give you my day this morning. I wake up, I grab my coffee, I go straight out. I've got a gym in the house now. So I build a gym because it's important. I walk straight out to the gym and I train. I train for normally an hour to an hour and a half. While I'm in the gym, sometimes I listen to audiobooks. Other times I just listen to music because I love music as well. And it could be anything from like crazy gangster hip hop right through to like chilled out music, or, you know, I just love music. So I'll listen to anything 60s rock, right, anything. So I listen to music. Then I will normally put on an audiobook while I'm having a shower and getting ready in the morning and eating breakfast. I pretty much eat the same breakfast every morning, which is normally eggs with some sort of a carbohydrate. This morning I think I had gluten-free crumpets because I eat gluten-free. I had a couple of eggs, I had some avocado, and I had some tomato. I got halfway through that and then realized I was running late for the team meeting. So I got in the team meeting and I do a team training. In that, I educate the team. Then from there, I got straight into, I think we did that. Then I worked with the accountability team. So we have an accountability team that hold people in our community accountable on goals and things like that. So I worked with them this morning. Then I hopped straight in the car and I went and did training all day and teaching, which was for our marketing team. Then I got on a couple of phone calls. I got home. I went for a walk with my wife, Jess, for an hour where we just had a general chit chat. Then she created dinner. I ate my dinner. I got 3/4 of the way through it and went, crap, I need a shower because I'm on, and now I'm on and I'm teaching. So essentially my day consists of learning, teaching, training, or teaching and training the same thing, connecting with people that I enjoy, who want to learn, who want to grow, or who can help me learn. And then I exercise. So essentially I train, I teach, I learn. I train, I teach, I learn, and that's about it. That's my day. Anything too much outside of that, and I start getting volatile and stressed out because it's telling me that it's not in my highest values. And I love running business, but to me, business is human behavior. So I'm not the best at strategic business. I'm the best with the behavior, leadership, team development, all of that stuff. And it's taken me 10 years to realize that. Okay. But once it clicked to me, it's just, that's what I do. So now people come to me and go, you need to read all these documents and stuff. And I go, right, just you read it, come back to me, give me a breakdown. I'll read through like contracts and stuff. But when I do it, the whole time my brain's going, I hate this shit. I don't enjoy it, but I just know that I need to do it if the business is going to grow. Okay. But I don't do much of that. Okay. From Thrive Time work though, these days it depends. I might do a balancing process mentally and emotionally if something comes up, but most of the days I'm pretty balanced because I journal consistently. So when I start getting that little rub on my neck, I identify it, I find out what the pattern is. Then I find out the benefits and the drawbacks of those patterns, which I go through all this stuff at Thrive Time. And then I just balance it. I balance it out in journal, and then I just cruise on my day. And throughout the day, if something comes up and I get all stressed out, or I get frustrated, or I get angry about something, if I've got time, I'll stop, I'll grab my journal, I'll quickly write whatever's going on. Then I try to balance it out in the journal. If it's something that's still coming up, I actually grab a process and do a proper process. If something comes up within my value structure, then I just adapt it. But I don't get too anal about this time I need to do this, then this time, and I don't work like that. I'm more of a free flow. The same as tonight. I think I give my best content when I'm in free flow, not when I'm structured. I tried to run slideshows and presentations and I get bored of them. Okay, and you'll know because I lose my enthusiasm. So I tend to free flow a lot through my days.
Awesome. Okay. Just scrolling through.
But what I'll say actually is when I first created the process of potential, which is the mental and emotional balancing tool that I teach at Thrive Time, it's probably one of the world's most advanced tools, or one of them, about how you balance out your mental and emotional states. So that tool there, I probably did maybe 300 to 350 of those processes in a 3 to 4 year period. I used to smash out 2 or 3 of them a week because I was volatile. I was running on my emotions. And so I'd get pissed off. Then I'd get excited about something and shit, I better write that down. And then someone would say something and it would make me frustrated. So I'd balance that out. And I would normally maybe once a week do a couple of them, and I'd book out a couple of hours. Or I would do one at night, and then a couple of days later I'd do one in the morning. So yeah.
Awesome. Can you explain the difference between the stress response in the body when growing and moving towards a vision verse when sickness gets created? Oh, that's a rabbit hole and a half.
There's 2 types of stress. I actually did a TikTok on this, I think about 2 days ago. For anyone on TikTok, Michael Mojo 00. So all of our social medias are the same. If you just type in Mojo, Michael Mojo 00, it'll pop up. But there's 2 types of stress. There's eustress and there's distress. So eustress is based on taking on challenges that push you to grow and expand. And that's a good stress. So today I would say I've had a lot of eustress. I've been living my values. I've been pushing myself. So it's called eustress. You can look it up. And then you've got the other form, which is outside of your values, which is called distress. The more distress we have, the more we create dis-ease. So that's probably the quickest way I can go through the differences between the 2. But the more you live your values, the more you create eustress. The more you live outside of your values, the more you create distress. The more you allow others to preoccupy your decisions, the more you're in distress. The more you live just serving your purpose, the more you live in eustress. And this has been seen. So I'm just going to give you some quick little statistics. And this is the stuff that I really love studying. As you can tell, I get pretty excited about this stuff. And essentially, as long as I'm finished by tomorrow morning, whatever time my next meeting is, 11 a.m., I'll keep talking all night if I have to. But if we look at socioeconomics, when people in countries where people get to live more of their values and you have a greater dynamic of value systems like Australia, where, you've got a person who goes through school and they go, I think I want to be a pharmacist. And someone else goes through and they go, I think I want to be a stay-at-home parent. Then you have someone else who comes along and they say, I think I want to work on cars. When you have a massive variety of value systems and people sort of either living close to their values or around their values, and they sort of get some fulfillment from their values, what you'll find is the socioeconomics of the country go up because people are more productive, they're more effective, they're more efficient, they tend to think better because they're out of that survival mode. Now, a lot of Australians get stressed out, but it's bullshit survival. It's not deep. They have a percentage of the week in eustress and a percentage of the week in distress. But when you go to countries like, let's just say Johannesburg, South Africa, when I go there, and I normally go there, every year or 2 years to study, when I'm over there, you've got a whole bunch of people who are living on the poverty line. They don't get to choose what they do, and they don't get to choose how they live their values. It's essentially, I need to keep a roof over my head and eat food, and I'll do whatever I have to do in order to make money. And that's how it is. So you've got more people in distress, not eustress. So the life expectancy drops dramatically. And so when you look at global life expectancies, you actually see that the more people live their values, the higher the socioeconomic status, but the greater the health status as well. So there's a direct correlation between socioeconomic status and wealth creation. And you've got the more you live your values, the greater ability you have of making money and serving money and understanding money. So higher socioeconomics, higher health status. Very simple. That's why when people say, there's no correlation between making money and someone's health, that's bullshit. That's someone who is not well researched. There is 100% a correlation between wealth creation and health. But that doesn't mean that people don't create distress from being stupid with money. This is why I teach a lot of wealth creation at our events for that exact reason, because if you serve your values and you understand them and you value yourself, then you create value. Money is just value. That's it. It's an exchange of value. That's how I see it anyway. If I live my values, I make a lot of money. Not because I just get out there and fucking steal from people. It's because I add a lot of value. Tonight I'm on here. No one paid any money to be here. Okay, it's because I want to give back to the community. And I know if I add value to people, eventually people sit here and probably watch this and go, I probably need to do some courses. I probably need to do some events. This guy seems like the guy to learn from. And then you come to my events and you pay, and that pay is a value exchange. And you say, Michael, we value your knowledge. Here's some value. And I go, thank you for that value. Then I deliver value, you get your value. And then I go, cool, now I've got some money. I can go and live my values. So then I go and I spend my money on my values, which is growing the business, serving more people, teaching more, studying more. Like those books behind me probably cost, I probably have $100,000 worth of books and study notes there. Maybe actually with all the courses and course notes and stuff, there's probably almost $1 million worth of stuff there. Okay, that wasn't free, but I pay someone else to learn. Okay, I don't know if that answered the question, but do you stress?
Okay. Part of what I'm studying for my motivational business is influence. My goal is to manipulate with others' best interests at heart. How would you judge this angle strategy? Oh, we love manipulating people to believe they're.
So what we teach is that other people are a direct reflection of yourself. Our society convinces people that they are things and not things. The truth is everyone, like I worked with someone a while ago and they said, you know, Michael, I would never bully someone. And I said, you've got kids? Yep. You've never bullied your kids. No, I'd never bully my kids. I said, bullshit. If I go and ask your kids, have they been bullied by mum or dad? What would they say? 100% they would say yes. Because they get told off, they get in trouble. They could consider that bullying. They get yelled at. So that could be considered as bullying from another person's perspective. Now, that may not be your perspective because we tend to manipulate situations to think that we're better than people, and then we beat ourselves down and think that we're worse than people. The more we do that, the more we start to realize that we're not other people, and we start judging other people. All those judgments are just, they're essentially smoke screens for our own ignorance. When you realize that you do the same as the people that you judge, you become a lot more congruent with who you are. So I'll give you an example. I remember at one of my events years ago, someone came up to me and they said, Michael, you're an asshole. And I got really offended. I said, what do you mean? And they, you know, I felt like I was attacked and, you know, I went, oh, you don't understand me. You don't know anything. Fuck off. Like, you know, I get upset about it, as I would be, because someone calls me an asshole in my own event. It was at a lunch break. It wasn't in front of people, but I have had people get super aggressive at my events and yell at me and all that sort of stuff. Then it was on my mind and it was replaying. Now, when we have situations replaying our brain, they're replaying because there's something that we need to learn from those experiences that we haven't learned yet in order to evolve. And I go through a lot of this in my events, especially Thrive Time. So if you want to move beyond past events and past experiences, you need to learn what you need to learn from those events. And I've got ways of showing you how to do that. So I went back and I looked at it and I went, what do they perceive? Will they perceive that I'm acting in this certain way and so on, and so they think I'm an asshole? Do I act that way? And I thought about it. I thought, actually, from other people's perspective, I can see that I'm an asshole. Yeah, I'm an asshole. And now I've had people in my team say to me, you know what, you're being an asshole. And I go, thank you. I'm glad you noticed. I've been working hard at it. Thank you. And I watch them and their brain almost explodes as they get more angry and I'm just calm. Because I know I can be an asshole. Everyone can be an asshole. But I'm cool with it. It doesn't bother me. Why would I think that if someone tells me that I'm a nice person, I own that, but when someone tells me I'm an asshole, I disown that? The truth is I can be an asshole, just like I can be kind, just like I can be aggressive, just like I can be angry. The more you own that, the more you own who you really are as a person. Okay, so we talk a lot about owning traits of other people at our events, because when you do that, you're actually, the more you avoid being certain things, and the more you, like, I've met plenty of people who say, I would never manipulate people for money. I would never use people to make money. And I go, really? Yep. You've just spoken to me for the last half an hour how you fucking hate going to work and how you waste most of your day at work scrolling through Facebook. Don't you think you're taking your boss for advantage? Don't you think that you're ripping off your boss? He's paying you to get a job done and you're taking advantage of that person. Oh yeah, but it's work. You're destroying someone else's dreams because you're sitting behind it. That's manipulation, and that's financial manipulation. They just don't see it. So I go through that about owning that stuff, because the more you do it, the more you just are who you are. And these days I have people call me shit on social media all the time. You're an asshole, you're a fraud, you rip people off. Okay, fair enough. Because I'm not going to change their perception. Whatever, it is what it is.
Okay? Yeah, that's right.
So the question was,
let me scroll back.
It was manipulating people. manipulation?
Yeah. How? My goal is to manipulate others best with their best interest at heart. How would you judge this angle or strategy?
Well, I manipulate people every day, including myself, because I have people who stand in front of me and they say, I want a better life. And I go, okay, here's what you need to do. Come to Thrive Time. Oh, I can't, I don't have money, I don't have time. And I go, fuck, I haven't heard this a million times before. Go on. And all their excuses and all their bullshit come out, all the crap. The only way I'm going to get that person to convince them to change their life on what I know works is to manipulate them into a different way of thinking. I've worked with drug addicts before. You can't take someone who uses drugs consistently and say to them, you should give up drugs. They fucking know that. Okay, they know most people when they use drugs or they use alcohol as a tool or they overeat food, they know that it's not the best thing for them. They know it. They feel guilty. They feel like shit. So telling them you shouldn't eat that stuff or you shouldn't drink so much, they know that. So what you have to do is you've got to manipulate their way of thinking in order to make them think differently. You have to do it. Once I realized that, I actually smiled. I remember balancing that out. And I balanced it out and I went, I manipulate people all the time. But I used to think I didn't manipulate people. But the truth is I do. Just like we all do. Okay, parents manipulate their kids to be better, to do things. Okay, my mum used to manipulate me to do well at school. Okay, it depends. It depends on the way you look at it and the angle you look at it. I don't think that a lot of people that I know wouldn't go out and manipulate people to hurt them. But I think we're always manipulating people. I just think a lot of people are ignorant to the fact that how much they manipulate people. Okay, so yeah.
Very true.
People manipulate people every day on social media when they comment about things. And they say, well, you shouldn't do that. Well, you're manipulating that person's way of thinking.
Yeah. Okay, next question. Where do you fit journaling, goals, value review, etc. in? How often? Daily, weekly, monthly? That's Daleen again.
I personally do it daily these days. I used to do it just when I felt like it. Like I said, I'm not really structured. So I journaled today. I journaled this morning. I journaled. I missed yesterday. So I missed yesterday, but I don't beat myself up about it. It's just I just missed it. Okay, that's why I don't like too rigid structures, because I find that most people, when you have a rigid structure, I have to journal every day, and you miss one day, you beat the shit out of yourself for not journaling. I'm like, oh well, it's part of a process. I learned something, I just implemented it again. Okay.
Yeah, and I find that you've got to do what works for you as well. Like you can't fit your model of life into somebody else's life. You've got to see where it fits in for you, and then you've got to do it at your own pace. Okay, last question.
Awesome.
How do you figure what your main values are? Is there a process? That's from Michael.
Is there a process to do your values? Yes. We do teach it at Thrive Time. You can go and look up, like there are ways of, like I know Dr. John DeMartini, who's a good friend of mine, a colleague. He's got a values test on his website. Now that one there, I find that most people, when they do their values, don't even get close to getting them right. And the reason why that is that they've spent their whole life subordinating to other people's values. So when you get asked questions, most people don't know how to answer them. So it might be a question like, what do you spend most of your time thinking about? I mean, I worked with a guy late last year, and I said, what do you spend most of your time thinking about? He goes, I don't know. I'm like, what do you think about? I don't know. That's how most people respond to questions when you're doing a values test. And there's only a couple of people who actually have a really accurate values test. We have one, and we have a very good one. DeMartini has a very good one. I haven't really come across too many others that are that decent. Most of them are pretty shitty, in fact. I would say that most people doing values tests makes them worse. But what I find is that unless you work with a person, either in a group dynamic and a group setting, and you've got a lot of time to explain it, and you really have time to understand it and then help people to get clarity on it, I just find that it is something that just most people get off track. It just doesn't seem to work that effectively. You got to be really, really careful with values tests, because I would say that most people are off track, and I would say that the majority of tools like that make people worse. I just saw Katie popped up the passion test. I haven't seen it, but I can tell you right now, if you go and study the etymology of the word passion, it means to suffer. So people who live a passionate life tend to suffer the most. And it's because they're always chasing either fantasies, delusions, or positives instead of dealing with what they really enjoy doing in life. The difference between love and passion, we have passions when we start dating people. And I'll use this as an example. The reason why we need passion in order to have a relationship is that unless you showed only the positive side of yourself at first when you start dating, no one would ever date you. You know, and I talk about this at Thrive Time. Like if you say, oh yeah, I'm a guy, I have bread in the freezer and a couple of beers and I have the boys around 3 times a week and I fart a lot. And if I drink dairy, I fart even more. And, you know, I don't really have any goals and ambitions. No one would date that person. And, you know, let's say you're in a heterosexual relationship and you're dating a woman and the woman says, oh yeah, by the way, there's all hair in my bathroom. So like, you know, the drain gets clogged like every couple of days from my fucking hair. Oh, and by the way, like there's all this beauty shit I'm going to fill up your drawers with. And by the way, I'm going to be, you know, when my emotions come up, I'm not going to talk logically. I'm going to talk emotionally. And I'm going to talk about the way that I feel. And it's going to confuse the shit out of you because you're masculine. And masculine people, when they're masculine, tend to speak logically. And feminine energy tends to speak emotionally. And so I'm going to just talk about all these feelings that I have. And you're not going to understand. And I'm going to die. No one would have relationships, full stop. So what you do is you only show one side of yourself and you go, I got home from work, I had a shower, I got ready, I came here, I'm successful, I enjoy my career, I look after my health, and you show one side of yourself. And that's why we start dating. Now, after a while, when you get in a relationship for long enough, you start realizing that they have a whole nother side that they hid from you. Now, over that time, you start learning a lot of lessons. And those lessons, you start to decide whether you want to keep dating this person or not. If you start falling in love, you start to see them for who they really are. And a loving relationship means you see the best in them and you see the worst in them. And after a while, the things that used to piss you off about them are the things that you actually smile at. You go, oh yeah, that's just them. Okay, that's a loving relationship. So in life, love tends to be more balanced. So if you've got kids that you love, they'll go to bed at nighttime after they've been beating the shit out of each other and screaming, yelling at each other. And you walk past their door and you look at them and they're sleeping. And you go, I love these kids. And it makes you smile, even remembering that they were just beating the shit out of themselves. Okay, so that's love. Love is dualistic. It's got both sides. It's got both positives and negatives. It has advantages and disadvantages, but you still love it anyway. Passion is one-sided. Okay, and passion leads to pain. And that's why the original etymology of the word passion means to suffer. Okay, so just be careful with that. That's why I go into depth in a lot of this stuff, because every time you study that stuff, it gives you clues. Now, the word passion has changed its meaning over time, but the original meaning serves a purpose, and it gives an understanding into human behavior that most people miss. So I'm not sure what that is. I'll go and study it and I'll look it up. But yeah, I'm just not sure. A proper value system test is the way that your brain filters information. And it's very, very accurate. If I can sit down with a person and figure out their values, I can tell what they're predictable at. I can tell their predictable sabotage patterns, because that's the way that they operate. It's essentially their whole operating system. Most personal development events, like I did 3 masteries in NLP through 3 different companies. They teach values inaccurate. Okay. And they were some of the biggest NLP providers globally.
All right. Well, that's all our questions. Yeah. You got anything you want to say to wrap it up before we say goodbye for the night?
Yeah. Look, what I would say is, first of all, thank you for joining us. I know I've been cranking now for we've been on here for 2 hours. I think that the most valuable asset that people have is their time. So thank you for, committing your time to be here. It takes courage to commit the time to want to learn and want to grow and want to be a better person. I think that's a massive commitment. The second thing is, thank you for wanting to grow. It takes courage to look at yourself and say, I can be better. And, I know we've got people on here at all different levels. There are some of you who are advanced in your studies in human behavior, some of you who are amazing business people, business leaders. There are some of you who are just starting a journey to this stuff. And I think that it takes a lot of courage to know that there's lots of stuff to keep growing in. And I think a lot of people used to come to our events and say, if I can just do one event, I'll have my life figured out. But I think after a while, a lot of people realize that, I think that a lot of people start to realize that learning is a lifelong process, and there's always something to learn. There's always something to grow. You can always be a little bit better. And once you embrace that, you stop going to seminars and events and thinking, I've learned all of this stuff. You just go, you know what? I just love the process of learning. I don't implement everything that I learn. What I do is I just keep learning, because I know that the more that I learn, the jigsaw puzzle starts fitting together and it all starts making sense over time. And so I really thank everyone for being on here tonight, because hopefully it's helping you put some of the jigsaw puzzle together. What I will say is, if any of this has made sense to you tonight and you really do want to go down that path and figure out your own personal life map, I believe Thrive Time is the greatest event on the planet. And that's after spending $1 million on studying on personal development. And that's what I've spent studying a lot of this stuff. So I've traveled all around the world, going to lots of seminars and events and all that stuff. And what I know is that until you get your life map correct, it is extremely hard to just stay on track. And it really is about a 2 to 3 year process of getting that right, because you've got to chip away all the crap from your whole life. So if we get someone who is 30 years of age, they've been watching everyone else behave and interact and changing the way that they behave and react in life for 30 years, trying to figure out what the rules of life are. At Thrive Time, we give you those ways of life. I go through and I show you the scientific data and evidence to give you some of the rules of the game of life. And we put it down into an event. It's a 4-day event, but really it's a process. It just takes time, because you've got to keep chipping away all the crap that's not really you, that's influencing your life and has infiltrated your thinking. And hopefully tonight, I know some of you would have had some aha moments and went, shit, this stuff's really making sense. For some of you, it's new. It's a new way of thinking about things. It's a new paradigm. And hopefully I hope that you join us at some of our events like Thrive Time. I would love to see you there. The link's in there. But if any of you have messages, like if any of you have any questions, please shoot them to me on Messenger. I know that I'm busy, so it might take me a couple of days to get back to you, but I will get back to you. And if you say, look, I don't know if Thrive Time's for me, if I can't hop on the phone, I know someone else will in the team, and we'll be able to help you. And my team have all done our events. Bronwyn, before we even hired Bronwyn had done all of our events, and she was you guys had $1 million plus turnover in your business, came to our event, realized it wasn't what she wanted to do, and ended up just committing and studying all of our stuff. And a couple of years later, now you work with us, and now you get to coach people and help people, and you're always at our events, and you're a great asset to the business. The majority of our staff have done our events. Amy, who's our customer service or customer care person, same thing. I remember Amy, being struggling in life quite a lot, and coming to the events, and now she's thriving and working with us. So it's just what it takes. So hopefully I hope that a lot of you will join me at Thrive Time if this sounds like it's interesting. There's also other events as well. We've got our high performance communication event to help people communicate better in business and in life. There's our high performance business culture, and we teach people how to build a business from the start up and build a really good culture. But also we get a lot of corporate people coming in about how to build a business culture properly and how to hire people effectively. And I teach all that stuff in that course. We've also got our Vitalis event, but normally you have to do Thrive Time before you do that, because I can't work on your health until you learn the fundamentals of how your mindset works, because it all interrelates. So yeah, Thrive Time is really the great entry point. But if you're a business owner, you might do some of our leadership courses as well. Okay.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you for your time tonight, Michael. It's always inspiring to hear you teach and see you in that energy. Thank you to everybody that tuned in. Hello to everybody that said hello. And yeah, like Michael said, if you've got any questions, inbox myself, Michael, the page. We're more than happy to answer any of your questions. One thing I will say though, is if you go on this journey, we are right there with you, and we hold you accountable to your growth. So if you're all in, you're all in. And we're right there with you.
100%. We love pushing people to grow. And sometimes it's what you need. Like I have conversations with people and they're really scared and they don't know what to do. And they're worried about all these other things, like what about the money? What about the time? And once you push them, they make the decision. It's almost like a pressure valve goes off and they go, oh, now I feel better. It's just getting that decision made that tends to be the hardest thing. And what I've found is that when people don't take action, their mind tends to become erratic and they overthink things. When people just keep making decisions, they push forward, they make things work. So, it's, that's, I think, my finishing statement. But also as well, if you haven't downloaded the planner as well, please do that. That planner's there. It's free. It's available to everyone. You can share it with your friends and family. Just give them the link, or you can send them whatever. But in there, once you get the email, you can also book a call with any of my coaches, and they can help you go through that planner to make sure you've set it up right, and you're setting your year up to win. So please utilize that as well. Like, we want people to win. And I know the more people I help, and the more inspired I am, the more inspired other people are in the community, and the more we're making an impact in the world. And I think what the world needs now is people with clarity, doing what they do, serving their purpose, living their mission, and living their values, because it's unique to them and that's their greatness. And I think a lot of people give that up in order to please others based on their values. And I'll be honest, most people are fucking lost, but they give advice to everyone else about the way that they should live. And if you're adapting your behavior based on the way that those people who are lost are telling you how to live, then we just have a whole society of lost people, which is what we've got. Okay, it's a whole world full of lost people who have no real idea what they want to do in life, where they're going, just a whole bunch of fantasies that they're chasing that are eventually going to lead to huge amounts of pain and suffering in their life. Okay, so yeah, just if you can, I'd love to work with you, and I'd love to see you at one of our events, and please download the planner.
Awesome. That's a wrap.
Have a great night, everybody. Keep living with Mojo, and just stay inspired. Keep your energy high, keep your enthusiasm high, and keep pushing hard in life. The world needs it.
Awesome. Don't forget, you've got to end this at your end.
Oh.